Welcome to the 2017 Pokken Tournament Deluxe Invitational. We've got a packed house here. Excited to see 8 YouTube and Twitch personalities battle it out in a 4-team Waseda-style format as we get set to see some of the new features in Pokken Tournament Deluxe. Welcome in. I'm Jordan Kent alongside with our 2 analysts, Vicky, Kitty, and D1. And Vicky, as we get set to see these core gameplay mechanics that our Twitch personalities obviously have mastered, but our YouTube personalities might try to grasp, what are they focusing in on?
So what you want to focus on are the different phases of the game. For those of you who are starting out for Pokken Tournament, please be aware what field phase and duel phase is. As we see our contestants battle out for Pokken Tournament Deluxe, you guys will see the different changes and how the battling will continue between field phase and duel phase.
And D1, there are some differences in this version, obviously. There's a reason why you call it Deluxe. What are we expected to see from the Pokken Tournament edition that we were familiar with on Wii U? What are the differences with this Deluxe edition?
True, there are definitely a lot of people thinking, why should I pick up the Switch version of the game if it came out on Wii U? Well, let me tell you something. There's Krogunk, Darkrai, Scizor, and Empoleon. Characters that were available in arcade in Japan are now finally coming stateside. And not only that, we also have the Decidueye. Also, there's split screen mode, which allows people to be able to play locally at home. And not only split screen, but you could also have 2-player on 1 screen playing. So 1 character in the foreground and 1 in the background duking it out. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that we also have 2 new support Pokemon with Litten and Popplio.
Lots of exciting new things in this Pokken Tournament Deluxe edition that are 4 teams and 8 competitors will be taking place in. And Vicky, you look at sort of how to understand some of the core mechanics, as we mentioned, and sort of being able to not only master and control your Pokemon, but then read and react to what the other opponent is doing.
Right, so how the game normally works with mechanic-wise is a rock, paper, scissors game. You want to always be 1 step ahead of your opponent and understand what beats what. So, you know, you always have to be 1 step ahead and understand if you do manage to win that trade, you do manage to get a lot out of it, like a critical that deals extra damage.
Let's take a look at our bracket and take you through a tour of some of the action we'll have going on this morning. Match 1, you're going to see, here's how things break down. Best 2 out of 3 rounds, that's going to win you a game. Best 2 out of 3 games, that's going to win you a match, which means you can advance in the bracket. You see the matchups here. We'll have the YouTube personalities battle it out first, then the Twitch personalities. If there is a 3rd game necessary to decide a match, then you will have the winner from the YouTube personalities taking on the winner of the Twitch personalities to see who advances in the match. So it's very exciting. And D1, to see, obviously, these Twitch personalities, very, very seasoned at this game particularly, against these YouTube personalities that they're still trying to grasp maybe some of the fundamentals here.
Oh, indeed. And let's not even forget about some of the pros that we have here as well, teaming up with these Twitch and YouTube personalities. It's going to be really interesting seeing how they face off, because some of the pros that we have in-house come from different fighting game communities. So I think we're going to see some really interesting things here today.
We're ready for our first match, so please welcome to the stage MatPat from Game Theory and his wife Stephanie Patrick as they get set to take center stage in our first matchup of the morning. Please give them a warm round of applause. And now it's interesting because we have the husband-wife duo going up. After they go on, our Twitch personalities, Ken and Alistair, will then battle it out. And as we mentioned, if it's necessary, a 3rd game, you have the winner from the YouTube personalities taking on the winner of the Twitch personalities. As we said, Stephanie Patrick, wife of MatPat. Throwing them in the fire right off the bat here, Vicky.
I just hope whoever loses gets to compensate and do the dishes later that night, because there are going to be some hands being thrown.
And D1, these YouTube personalities, they're going to select their character prior to the match, and so they're obviously going to know who's going with who. But when you look at getting a chance to get familiarized with this, what are some of those core things that people that are first getting introduced to this really need to learn to grasp?
When it comes to a Pokken tournament, first and foremost, not only do you have to understand what kind of character you're going into, but the support Pokemon that can help also complement your character. Depending on which support Pokemon you're using, you can actually have the upper hand in a match that maybe wasn't in your favor at first.
When you talk about the support Pokemon, there's offensive and defensive types of support Pokemon. How interesting is it that a lot of these fighters will try to find that support Pokemon that either contrasts their playstyle or supports it?
Oh, indeed. There's some Pokemon that actually allow players that are really into Rushdown find a way to get through projectile zoners, while other Pokemon can actually just clear a path for those people that maybe get pressured way too much. And here we already have it. Scizor, one of my favorite Pokemon, taking the stage.
Two of the new Pokemon you can catch in Pokken Tournament Deluxe on Switch as that comes out. MatPat versus Stephanie Pat. Scizor versus Empoleon. Let's get this started off in field phase right now. Scizor gonna unleash a couple projectiles right here, get some damage on Empoleon. Meanwhile, Empoleon doing a fine job of blocking Vicky, and being able to master that block is critical.
It is very critical, and as we saw right there already, a phase change. This is where you're gonna see the most damage being done. This is dual phase. You wanna rack up as much damage as possible, and immediately with another phase shift right there,
MatPat as Empoleon putting some pressure on Stephanie Pat, who is going to be Scizor. Meanwhile, Scizor doing a fine job of zoning out Empoleon early on here, D1.
But you already see Empoleon just using Aqua Jet to get inside. Empoleon, not quite the fastest character, but if he's able to use Aqua Jet, he has 4 different options out of it that allows him to get in, and already right there taking the first round over Scizor.
Empoleon with the grab to secure that one. That means MatPat gets the victory. If Matt wins one more round, he's victorious, and there's something about marriage advice. You can either be victorious or happy, so I'll let you think about that one, Matt, as you get set for the next round here. Now, as we get set, we saw with Scizor, Stephanie Pat really struggling for the most part to get a lot of big hits on Empoleon. Empoleon doing a fine job of blocking Vicky.
although Empoleon may be very slow in his own way, when he gets in, he does immense amount of damage, and that is exactly what we saw that last game. But at the moment, we're not seeing that right now. We're seeing a completely different game compared to the last game we were introduced to.
Full synergy gauge for both players right now, and how important is that synergy gauge, D1, as far as the timing of when you want to use it?
So with the synergy gauge, you can actually use it to get some pressure off of you if you're blocking. You can get some recoverable health, and also access to a burst attack, which will be able to turn the tides of a match.
Empoleon with the grab, MatPat with the early lead, 326, 237 on the health bar. Scizor trying to get some damage done in field phase. Meanwhile, going to go ahead and shift it right here. Stephanie Patrick trying to hang on and force a third round in this game between the two that are the husband and wife. Meanwhile, Empoleon with yet another grab, and Vicky, Stephanie unable to negate those grabs.
That's quite unfortunate right there, but she's activating her burst mode right now. That burst mode does a lot of damage, exactly 223 to be exact. He needs to watch out with only 51 health. Oh, but unfortunately misses just by a tad bit.
Here comes the support Pokemon with Latias. Stephanie Pat trying to give MatPat a to-do list and get to the third round here. However, Empoleon into the synergy burst, and Stephanie Pat with the victory. And we're going to have a third round to decide this game between the two from Game Theory. And what we saw was Stephanie Pat getting into that synergy burst and being able to apply some pressure on Empoleon right there.
And MatPat did activate his synergy burst as well, but was unable to take advantage of that opportunity too.
Third and final round in this game between MatPat and Stephanie Pat, our two YouTube personalities. A couple of early hits here for Empoleon. And when you look at the support Pokemon, D1, how can they play a huge role in this third and final round?
If we're looking at MatPat's Pokemon Fennekin right there, you actually are able to use a move that is able to get the opponent off of you upon wake up. And now looking at Stephanie Patrick with the Latias, if I'm not mistaken, you're able to close in the Pokemon, making it really difficult for them to move around. So here it is, Scizor already having a tough time trying to zone. As you can see, Empoleon is always getting inside, using Scizor using the Swords Dance, which is great for actually making it difficult for your opponents to get inside. But as you can see, it covers the sides better than the front.
Huge advantage right now for MatPat as Empoleon enters Synergy Gauge. This could be enough to close the match here. However, Scizor not ready to give it up. Gets it knocked back into that support Pokemon right there. And now it's close. Stephanie Pat with the light advantage. But no! MatPat gonna go ahead and get the victory over Stephanie Pat. Impressive performance by Empoleon, and we saw Scizor, Stephanie Pat, try to get some damage late in that one, try to turn things around, but what we saw from Empoleon and MatPat the entire time, able to sort of stay in that mid-zone area and keep Scizor nice and uncomfortable.
That is where Empoleon does the most damage, actually. We did mention that earlier, and what we also saw right at the end there, how the support Pokemon was able to help Stephanie follow up with more attacks and keep that distance, but unfortunately, it just was not enough.
And you look at two Pokemon in Scizor and Empoleon here, D1, two Pokemon that typically specialize in that rush down type of play, where you really want to get up in the opponent's face and apply some pressure, but we saw Empoleon able to keep Scizor at bay, and that's what made it difficult.
Yeah, man, the Ice Beam right there from Empoleon is such a great zoning tool, and right afterwards, you're able to slide right in once you apply that little bit of pressure and get up in the opponent's face. Empoleon has such great tools to even break counters, but we're going to go into this next match here with Alistair versus Ken.
Alistair going with Mewtwo, Ken going with Scizor early in this one. Scizor getting the attack here on Mewtwo, applying some early pressure. Mewtwo, however, able to knock back Scizor. An early advantage right now for Alistair. The nice combo up against the wall, going to knock Scizor back. And you look at the type of player Mewtwo is. Mewtwo, once again, kind of one of those all-around players, D1.
Yeah, Mewtwo definitely one of the strongest characters in the game. Has great zoning tool, and that Hyper Beam dishes out a lot of damage. And another thing to look at is both of these players have the same assist support Pokemon right there with Litten. Litten, if your HP is rather low, you're actually able to dish out more damage. It is a projectile. And right there, first game going to
Alistair getting the victory right there with Mewtwo. Very impressive. And listen, if you don't have a Master Ball against Mewtwo, it's going to be really tough sometimes. So very impressive performance right there. Can Ken force a third round, or else the victory is going to go this match to MatPat and Alistair? Let's pick this one up early on. Again, more pressure just being applied by Mewtwo and able to just get Scizor up against that wall, get those combos. And Vicky, it is very difficult sometimes when you get pinned up against the edge of the stage.
Yeah, it really does, because not only are you stuck against the wall, but you're limited to so much stage control that you take so much damage. Although you can't ever get KO'd if you are pressed against the wall immensely, but immediately we're seeing Scizor taking it over Mewtwo. Mewtwo and Scizor being two characters that really like to fight mid-range.
There you have it. Alistair making quick work of Ken, getting the two victories right there. And so that is game, set, and match for the combination of MatPat and Alistair. They will advance in our bracket. Big round of applause for Stephanie, Patrick, and Ken. We'll let Stephanie and Matt go ahead and work that one out a little bit later. I'm sure they'll get a chance to practice more Pokemon Tournament Deluxe. And D1, you look at Mewtwo in that last match, and it was really interesting to see the combination of the projectiles to keep Scizor at bay. Scizor never really had an opportunity to get up close to Mewtwo's face and apply some of those combos and pressure.
Yeah, Mewtwo has this great tool in the Cycle Cut where he's able to dash in and out and throw it yet again. His grab comes out quite deceptively fast as well. When you look at it, he's already in your face and you're taking damage. So I think with that zoning tool that Mewtwo has, it's very difficult sometimes for people to deal with, especially if your back's to the corner.
Mewtwo also has one of the best homing attacks in the game, so it can be really difficult to try to jump around him, to probably attack from behind, because he's it's so large that it could actually be counted as an anti-air. So you have to look out for that as well when you're trying to approach a character like Mewtwo.
Well, we saw in that match between Alistair and Ken, Alistair using Mewtwo, Ken going with Scizor, that Mewtwo was just doing a fine job of zoning out Scizor. And when you get those all-around type players that can play either close or from afar, they're really trying to read and react on the type of player that they are facing. And Scizor being a rush-down type player, Mewtwo can just sit back and use its wide array of projectiles, D1, to keep Scizor at bay. And it was never really even close at any moment in this one.
Yeah, the entire time you just saw Alistair zone in space right around Ken, trying to force him to approach, and he limited his options really well because he threw projectiles not only from the ground but also the sky, and it really looked like Ken just didn't know what was coming.
Let's take a look at the updated bracket as we see the team of Alistair and MatPat advance. They will be taking on the winners of our next match. We'll get a chance to introduce them here shortly. And so that's looking like a pretty powerful combination right there. MatPat and Alistair. We'll have to see how that one got seeded. But we go back to some of these gameplay mechanics that we're seeing from these players here, Vicky, and it's really interesting as well, too, that ability to read your opponent, and we saw a lot of grabs being executed, but also how valuable is it to time that counter properly with some of the attacks you're going against?
It's very important because it can make a difference whether you're pushed against the wall or not, pushed at a very big disadvantage. So you have to understand, okay, I'm put into a very bad position. What can I do to get around this? You jump over a character like Mewtwo where he can catch you even in the air, as we saw earlier in that replay. You have to understand, okay, I'm put into a bad position. Maybe I need to take a step back, hold shield, but you don't want to hold shield for too long because that gets us up to a grab.
Let's get set for our next match here. It's going to be between JD Witherspoon and Nairo is going to be Team 3. Meanwhile, Team 4, Black Nerd Comedy and Justin Wong. So our first matchup will be JD Witherspoon taking on Black Nerd Comedy. Meanwhile, waiting for the next match will be Nairo and Justin Wong. Welcome them up to the stage. And this is going to be exciting here, D1. We've got, obviously, some very seasoned fighting players here that have done a fantastic job here. They have got some very good proficiency with Pokken Tournament Deluxe. However, our U2 personalities, we saw in the situation of Matt Pat and Stephanie Patrick, as each round was advancing, they were almost picking up more of the mechanics of this game.
Oh, indeed. You can tell that when it comes to Pokken Tournament, it is easy to pick up, but as far as mastering it, that's the hard part.
Certainly is, and there's a lot of mechanics, and I had a chance to chat with Alistair prior to this, and he was talking about the importance of being able to do that counter attack dash cancel. A lot of times when you get a Pokemon like Scizor that's getting zoned out by Mewtwo, how do you use that counter attack dash cancel to sometimes bait your opponent into getting them into a position where you can take advantage of them?
So as long as you know your opponent isn't using a move that is able to pierce the counter attack, you're able to build synergy, which is your meter that allows you to gain burst. And also, you get an opportunity. You don't take any damage when you go into the counter attack. And if you go for the dash cancel, you have quick access to any of your options in neutral after making sure to basically absorb the attack.
You also close in a lot of space when you counterattack dash cancel, so you're applying a lot more pressure and taking more stage control against the opponent as well.
We're seeing a lot of these new Pokemon that you will get introduced to in Pokken Tournament Deluxe being used right now. Right now we're going to have a matchup of Darkrai and Croagunk, and Darkrai, one of those Pokemon, D1, that's going to be a zoner. Meanwhile, Croagunk, more so all around, so this is going to be interesting to see the playstyle that Croagunk's going to do, because you know Darkrai's going to want to keep Croagunk at bay.
Croagunk is a very silly character coming into Pokken Tournament Deluxe. If you press his special button, the A button, he has so many different random moves that come out. You don't quite know what's going to come at you. And as far as Darkrai is concerned, he's a character that specializes in traps. If he's able to catch you with that Dark Void, you go into Nightmare mode. And once you're in Nightmare mode, things get way more difficult facing off against Darkrai. He has more moves than Pierce as well.
A legendary, mythical creature of the dark taking on a ninja frog, basically. We've got Croagunk going on against Darkrai. That's what we love about Pokken Tournament Deluxe. All of these Pokemon here getting a chance, even playing field, to take on each other. Still right now, nobody with an early advantage. You see JD Witherspoon with Darkrai. Meanwhile, Black Nerd Comedy going with Croagunk. And there you go, the support Pokemon coming in, creating some damage.
Croagunk actually trying to find his way in. As D1 did mention earlier, this character is a very RNG. If you hold his A button, he could get positive stats or negative stats. That would be terrible for him to get that negative stat around the end when it would really make a difference within the match.
Oh, we see JD Witherspoon, though, getting knocked back by Black Nerd Comedy, and Croagunk, however, able to respond right there. Has that full synergy gauge. It's getting filled right there. However, has the support of Reshiram ready to go whenever he wants, D1.
Oh, absolutely. Reshiram dishes out a decent amount of damage. And right there, you already see Darkrai just having a tough time dealing with this Croagunk. You know, the Croagunk already activating burst mode. What's going to happen here?
Croagunk in burst mode, trying to put some pressure on Darkrai. Can he connect right here? No, won't. Darkrai able to block that. Able to do a fine job of reading Croagunk. However, time is up. You've got to operate a little bit quicker. That first victory in that round is going to go ahead and go to Black Nerd Comedy and Croagunk. Very impressive. JD Witherspoon and Darkrai. Hey, listen, you got another round, JD. You got a chance to bounce back here. And so, Vicky, you look at the choice of when to deploy support Pokemon. what's typically going through the mind of players as far as when they need to use that? Are they reading, if it's an offensive Pokemon, they're going to read the opponent. If it's defense, if you're waiting for the right time.
I think it's like two different things. I feel like it could be depending on the player's preference, what they feel like they lack as a player, and what their Pokemon lacks in the neutral. So if their Pokemon is just very slow and they're not able to close in that gap to get as much space as possible done and apply all that pressure, maybe they want a support Pokemon to help speed up their boost.
Croagunk applying some pressure to Darkrai, and what's interesting, D1, is we're seeing Croagunk really succeed right now, keeping some distance from Darkrai and zoning Darkrai out.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised seeing how Darkrai, being the character that's great at zoning, is instead being zoned out here by Croagunk. The bombs being placed on the field have made it very difficult for Darkrai to approach.
Darkrai activating its Synergy Burst. Let's see if we can connect with the burst move. This might do it. No! Misses, however. Meanwhile, Croagunk up against the wall. Darkrai trying to apply some pressure. Here comes the burst move, though. And this is going to be fantastic. What do we have here?
We have the Infinite Eclipse dishing out 198 damage. This should possibly be the end.
You can sit back and watch the credits roll right there as JD Witherspoon and Darkrai bounce back to take the next round and force a third round between our two YouTube personalities, D1.
Oh, and right now we actually have Black Nerd Comedy and
JD Witherspoon talking smack, pointing heads behind the monitor. Wow. Wow. I like it. No love lost between these two as we get to our third and final round. Let's pick things up early on here. Croagunk getting some pressure on Darkrai, trying to zone Darkrai out, getting up close in the face of Darkrai now. And you see getting knocked back right there. You can't hold that shield and that block forever.
You can't, and you see Croagunk is actually planting the bombs on the opposite side of Darkrai and then forcing him to move towards those bombs with his own projectiles. It could be really tricky, and you have to watch out because those bombs are not activated, but they actually deploy on their own.
Croagunk going to activate the Synergy Burst right now. That's going to obviously do some more damage. Meanwhile, Darkrai with the buff of its own. Here comes the Synergy Burst move, but no, misses once again. And that is huge for Darkrai because Darkrai having a chance to build a Synergy Burst and also has that Cresselia as the support Pokemon ready to go and going to deploy it right now, D1.
Already getting that recoverable health back. Look at that, 408, looking quite healthy.
Croagunk getting in the face of Darkrai. Darkrai trying to get the grab right there, misses. Fine blocking right there. Nice little combo by Darkrai. JD Witherspoon versus Black Nerd Comedy. The best of three right here. It comes down to this. Meanwhile, Croagunk getting a major hit, doing some nice damage on Darkrai right there, Vicky.
Yes, it's incredible how much damage output Darkrai actually has, but Croagunk still holding his own. He could still definitely do this. He's applying as much pressure as he possibly can, and they're gonna try to put themselves into dual phase to rack up all the damage as possible there.
D1, only 10 seconds left in this one. You've got the advantage for Darkrai, and Darkrai gonna go ahead and get the knockout. Wow. Black Nerd Comedy thrown off by the confidence and the smack talk of JD Witherspoon. You see the swagger from JD Witherspoon as well too, getting that victory over Black Nerd Comedy. So now we hand it over to our Twitch personalities. We're gonna have Nairo taking on Justin Wong. It's going to be very exciting here. And what we saw, Darkrai dropping the first round here. However, it seemed like JD Witherspoon finally had a sip of coffee and woke up and picked his game up.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you right now, I saw Nairo, he was definitely giving JD some tips, and after JD talked some smack to Black Nerd Comedy, I don't know what happened, but his confidence shot through the roof, and that third round, he was actually moving. You saw he was just swinging left and right, throwing out those projectiles, and that was it. Black Nerd Comedy losing the first game.
Exciting matchup here. We've got Mewtwo versus Weavile. As we mentioned, Mewtwo, one of those standard types, as we like to say, can operate from afar, zone you out, and get up in your face. Meanwhile, Weavile certainly want to get up close and apply some pressure right in your mug.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know who's playing who, Nairo will be playing Mewtwo, while Justin Wong with Weavile.
Justin Wong and Weavile getting the first couple initial hits, going to go ahead and shift the face here. Meanwhile, Mewtwo going to get some pressure and knock back Weavile right here. And nice air combo in the juggle right there, Vicky.
And that is the exact positioning where Mewtwo wants to be mid-range, but in your face, he could apply so much pressure. You do have to watch out because if that Weavile gets a critical and manages to rack up as much damage as possible, close range is where Weavile excels the most.
Weavile with a very nice combo right there. Mewtwo able to knock him back. And D1, talk a little bit about low stance, high stance. We're seeing some of that being deployed right now as these two players are really up close and personal trying to read each other.
And the cool thing about low stance is that you're able to actually low profile, depending on the character that you're using, certain moves. If there's a move that goes rather high, you can duck underneath and get a free opportunity to counterattack.
Nairo and Mewtwo getting knocked back. Weavile going to go ahead and enter that Synergy Burst mode. We've got 30 seconds left in this match. Has Mewtwo on the ropes. Weavile trying to apply some pressure, and that will do it. Able to burst through the block right there. And now the pressure cooker heats up a little bit. One more victory in this round, and you've got JD Witherspoon and Nairo that will advance.
And something to keep into consideration at the very end there, when Weavile was using their burst mode, burst for Weavile was actually a short-range counter, so if Mewtwo would have thrown an attack, that burst could be immediately activated and gone through that counter, just like he does for every other burst.
Absolutely right. Right now, both fighters in each other's face, applying some pressure. Mewtwo with a nice grab, going to do some damage right there. Early advantage Mewtwo, 57 seconds left, plenty of time. Still going to go ahead and try to push Weavile up against the edge of the stage here and just doing a fine job of pinning Weavile back. And look at all that damage Nairo was able to apply, D1.
And not only all that amazing damage that Nairo could apply, but you have to be afraid because right now going into the third round, we have Justin Wong with full burst.
Justin Wong with full burst. Nairo, meanwhile, with Mewtwo, able to get the victory on Weavile. So let's go to our third and final round to decide this game. Very exciting right here. Meanwhile, Mewtwo going to go ahead, try to get the aerial on Weavile. Misses right there, but how about the juggling right here, D1?
Nairo is actually on a tear, opening up with that Hyper Beam and also getting a combo into the Fire Punch, Ice Punch, and Thunder Punch. How is Justin Wong going to be able to bring it back?
Nairo, Justin Wong coming down to the end here in this round, a third and final one, victory for each one. But Mewtwo once again applying the pressure on Weavile.
The side strike, okay, Justin Wong, 71 health left. This is impressive play right here from Nairo.
And Nairo using Cresselia to get some of that health back. Meanwhile, burst mode activated for Weavile and Justin Wong. You've got to lay it all out on the line at this point, getting some pressure and some support from the support Pokemon. Here comes the burst move, but no, gonna be blocked by Nairo. Nairo counters with that juggle up against the wall here, Vic.
And all that pressure against the wall, will Nairo take it right here? Only 0 health, and Nairo takes it over Justin Wong.
From the brink. Very impressive. So Nairo and JD Witherspoon will advance. Hats off to Black Nerd Comedy and Justin Wong for a hard-fought battle. And really, we saw the Mewtwo. We talked about being standard in that matchup against Scizor. The previous match, we saw Mewtwo really working with distance, but now against Weavile, operated right in the face of Weavile and applied a lot of pressure up against the wall.
All I'm telling you right now is it looks like teams with Mewtwo are excelling. I don't know, man. It's a little scary.
Those Mewtwo teams certainly doing a very good job. And as we mentioned, Mewtwo, one of those standard players, as they like to say, that can really work both as a zoner or a rush type Pokemon. And especially in this match, we saw Mewtwo really taking advantage, Vicky, of really countering some of the attacks from Weavile and then doing a fine job of getting into some combos with some juggles.
Yeah, there was times too where Justin Wong was able to close in that gap and rack up a lot of damage on Nairo when he would win the rock, paper, scissors train, but unfortunately it just was not enough, and Nairo was just able to be on top of that RPS train all the time.
Let's take a look at the replay. And D1, tell me what you're seeing here as we roll this replay between Mewtwo and Weavile.
Okay, so right there, you see Justin Wong trying to use Frogadier to apply some pressure, which worked out really well in his favor. And right here, as Justin Wong went for the burst attack, observe Nairo actually putting up his shield. I thought he didn't have shield up. Goes right around Weavile and uses that amazing homing attack just to get the wall splat right there. And that dive kick, putting Justin Wong in such a tough situation. Nairo, I wasn't quite sure if he was going to be able to finish it, but right there, those two light attacks was all he needed.
So let's bring them out here and get set for our championship final match. We've got MatPat and JD Witherspoon facing off against each other, and Alistair versus Nairo. MatPat and Alistair on a team, and then Nairo and JD Witherspoon trying to bring home the championship for themselves. So get set to welcome them out to the stage. And really, as these YouTube personalities face off, we talk about how it's almost like watching your child walk because they're starting to learn more and more as the game goes on. But when you're getting introduced to this, do you think it's better to try and zone sometimes, or do you think it's better to just get up close, apply some pressure, because our YouTube personalities might not be able to read and counter quite as well as the Twitch personalities can?
I think the best thing to do is to not have tunnel vision and rely on only one strategy, because then you become a one-trick pony and you're easier to read and counter. So if you're able to actually mix it up and stay in close or zone, that's when things get difficult.
Well, let's welcome up our fighters to the stage, obviously talking about some extra strategy in the back. You've got Matt, Pat, and Alistair taking on J.D. Witherspoon and Nairo. Our first match will be Matt, Pat, taking on J.D. Witherspoon. J.D. Witherspoon already bumping those gums, talking all that trash right now to Matt, Pat. Let's see if Matt, Pat has got a game theory to win this one right here. And as we saw Matt, Pat, he really excelled with the Empoleon and getting some pressure and some grabs. However, J.D. Witherspoon, his previous match, using a fine job of connecting with some of those synergy bursts, Vicky.
Yeah, what Matt Pack is going to want to look out for mostly is, although Empoleon is very slow, his moves do make up for that. He is allowed a lot of movement options out of his attacks, actually. So when he throws out that Ice Beam, not only can he slide in it, you have the option to do nothing out of it. But when you are in the mid-air and you press X, you kind of create an area of effect of ice that you could also use to kind of sidestep, slide away from your opponent as well.
Well, both Matt and JD are going to go with different Pokemon potentially for this match. It's going to be interesting to see who they choose. Do they go with what they had, or do they maybe go with something different here, D1, to throw their opponent off guard and not let them scout?
Yeah, right now I'm actually waiting to see. Not trying to, guess anything here, but it looks like J.D. Witherspoon, since he went with Darkrai before, I'm guessing we probably might see it again.
There it is.
There it is.
Darkrai versus Empoleon. And Vicky, we were playing the other day, and Empoleon, the burst move out of synergy mode, there's something special about that one.
His burst is actually kind of incredible because of the fact you can't shield it. It is a command grab. So the only way to counter around his burst is by jumping over it.
And that's going to certainly take some tough timing right there. We've got Darkrai versus Empoleon. Darkrai being played by J.D. Witherspoon. Matt Pat going to go ahead and go with Empoleon right now. Some early pressure being applied by J.D. Witherspoon, trying to zone Empoleon. Maybe some coaching provided by Nairo. We'll see. Meanwhile, Alistair with some advice from Matt, Pat, Empoleon getting in, getting a couple early hits on Darkrai, and already we see Empoleon getting in the face of Darkrai and applying some pressure here, D1.
So the main thing you saw there is that at first, J.D. Witherspoon was doing an impressive job of zoning with the Dark Pulse, but what happened was, finally, we saw Matt Pat opt to go with the Ice Beam to get inside and use that slide.
And you can't hear them right now, but J.D. Witherspoon is just talking all sorts of mess to Matt Pat right now, trying to throw him off his game. And speaking of throw, gets the grab right there, and that's going to help sort of turn the tide. No synergy burst quite yet. However, you see the support Pokemon ready to go for Matt Pat. Darkrai trying to wait for that Cresselia to be ready to call at any moment's notice. We're going to go ahead and shift phases here, and Empoleon still trying to get that early pressure on Darkrai in its face up against the wall here, Vicky.
Already applying so much pressure against the wall, and this is where a lot of damage is going to be, but immediately with that grab, he's going to get the KO, and that's going to be game one to Empoleon.
And D1, Matt Pat, how about the combination of putting some pressure against your opponent in the corner on the wall? Your opponent then is going to be pretty aggressive to try and bounce back, most likely, or try to block to withstand all those attacks. Then you go in with the throw.
Which is why you saw Matt Pat actually successful right there in the last round. One thing about Empoleon too, he has some moves that can actually go through your counterattack, so it can be very scary defending against Empoleon. You want to keep him outside, which is why you see JD just trying to run away in zone.
Matt Pat took the first round. If he gets this one, that'll be a one-game victory for his team in this 3 out of 5 final championship. Empoleon, meanwhile, all that pressure up against the wall, D1. We see it time and time again.
He just keeps going in with the Aqua Jet. Finally, JD puts up the shield and gets grabbed for it.
I don't hear a whole lot of talking coming from JD at this point. Facing a huge deficit, 553 to 57. Going to go ahead and deploy that synergy burst. You've got to release the Hoons at this point and try to fight back against Matt Pat. Matt Pat does have a synergy burst. Reshiram right here, the support Pokemon being cold, but that's blocked by Empoleon and Matt Pat. Darkrai going to try with that burst move, but it doesn't connect, D1.
It just looked like J.D. Witherspoon trying to use everything in his arsenal to bring it back, but unfortunately, Matt Pat took it over.
Matt Pat silencing JD with an impressive victory in that second round. Wasn't even close there, Vicky.
It looked like JD was actually trying to use his burst to go through any move that Matt Pat was going to throw at him, but unfortunately it was just too late, and he kind of used his burst attack a little bit too early, and unfortunately missing, kind of being crucial to the matchup.
So it's a best 3 out of 5 with the games in this championship match. So we're going to go ahead and see Matt Pat and J.D. Witherspoon face off again. So this will be for the second game. You've got 1 game point victory already for Matt Pat and Alistair. MatPat trying to get a second one. That means Alistar can come in and be the clinching point potentially. Let's see if JD Witherspoon learned anything from that last matchup. We saw Empoleon D1 really apply a lot of pressure in the face of Darkrai, not where Darkrai really wants to operate, and found himself pinned up against that wall for most of the match.
Yep, again, we see JD Witherspoon trying his best to zone, but once Empoleon gets inside, it looks like all that little chip damage that he was able to get doesn't quite matter, so he's going to have to do a better job of keeping that wall up.
That grab was negated by Empoleon, and once again, just going to work the combo and the pressure up against the wall. However, Darkrai able to counter that right there, and finally getting some relief here, D1.
I actually like the fact that he was attacking more instead of trying to throw the projectile, but here it is, Empoleon striking back with that ice beam.
And Vicky, Darkrai cannot just try to get Empoleon out of the zone. It's just too much Empoleon in your face at this point.
It's so many buttons being pressed in your face, and it really does work. There was not a counter to be seen inside.
MatPat with the victory, and you know there's some questions for JD when you start to see the palms turn to the sky and the shoulders shrug at this point. Nairo trying to step up, get some coaching for JD, your boy, struggling right now at this point. However, there's still a couple more rounds that can be played. Don't count out Darkrai, but what we're seeing here, D1, Empoleon, one of those rush Pokemon, living in that rush down zone as opposed to Darkrai the zoner, not really getting a lot of breathing room between him and Empoleon.
Yeah, let me just tell you, Alistar actually really loves Empoleon. So to have Alistar helping out MatPat, that's a big boon to him right there. And look at it already, MatPat trying to maintain that health lead. Going for the grab, but this time JD Witherspoon being a little more aggressive, going right through that.
That was really smart of JD, actually, recognizing that he wanted to go for the grab when he held shield just slightly longer than he should have, and he immediately threw an attack to counter that counter.
And there it is again, we're going straight back into dual phase. Only 10 HP left on JD Witherspoon. He goes into the burst. I don't know if he's going to be able to connect it. Looking for an opportunity to confirm. Is this a chance?
Darkrai with that burst move in, yes, gonna grab Empoleon. This is gonna do a lot of damage here, D1.
Yes, 198 to be exact, and here is the infinite Eclipse.
However, MatPat and Empoleon still with a sizable lead, 254 to 42. Gonna be able to block the support Pokemon right here. Darkrai trying to keep Empoleon guessing, however, Empoleon getting in that area where it likes to operate best, right in the face of Darkrai, Vicky.
Empoleon himself has his burst mode active right there, and he's activating it as we speak. Are we gonna see the Deep Blue Monarch? That does a lot of damage, and right now with such a close game, it may be...
Oh, JD Witherspoon and Darkrai! Don't say goodnight yet! And here comes the talking once again. Turning off the mute button once he finally wins another round here. And you love the confidence. It ain't over. You're absolutely right. We've seen comebacks before. Meanwhile, MatPat still pretty confident. That was one that, he had such a sizable lead right there, D1. Do you think MatPat got maybe a little too defensive and didn't try to go on the offensive to close this one out?
He got a little bit too comfortable there. He said, you know what, I'm going to probably sit on my win, right, and just wait for my opponent to basically defeat himself.
So as these two teams face off, MatPat versus JD Witherspoon, it's a 3 out of 5 games for them to get 1 point. Then Alistar and Nairo will face off for another potential point. If both teams are at 1-1, we'll go to one final match that will determine the champion of our 2017 Pokken Tournament Deluxe Invitational. But let's get you back to the action here as Darkrai at 226. Now has turned the tables, Vicky, and has Empoleon up against the wall.
That's why you don't just relax after the second game. You may have won 2, but you never know when it's going to bring back around. Right now, as we're seeing, it could be really close. Is Empoleon going to finally take it?
That Reshiram going to knock Empoleon back, and that does some major damage. And going to also decrease the attack for Empoleon. Empoleon going into burst mode at this point. 14 health just for Darkrai. A puppy kiss would knock him out at this point, but no! Empoleon with the nice cross on JD Witherspoon and able to get the KO from behind.
This Empoleon is just unstoppable, man. It's out of control. It looks like Nairo's gonna have to do a little bit more coaching on his part for JD Witherspoon.
So MatPat has now won 2 games. If MatPat can win 1 more game, he earns a point for the team of MatPat and Alistar as they advance to the next match. JD Witherspoon will have to win 3 games in a row now in order to try and get that vital point in this championship round. And so you look at JD, though, we saw a little bit more of a progression with that Darkrai, able to get Empoleon turned around and even had Empoleon up against the wall at one point.
Yeah, he was applying a lot of pressure. I think one of my favorite things is seeing how he mixed up his offense. He started going in the air, opting for the dive kicks.
I saw him opt for the dive kicks a few times, but I recognized how he started using Ice Beam to go towards Darkrai first, and when he had him against the wall, that's when he applied the very most pressure that we saw amongst the entire game in dual phase.
JD Witherspoon rolling with Darkrai once again. Meanwhile, MatPat going to go ahead and go with Empoleon. And D1, one thing we should also point out, all these stages are different sizes. So if you're Darkrai, you're going to want a larger stage potentially. Meanwhile, Empoleon seems to be really fine operating those smaller stages, pushing Darkrai up against the wall.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You could already see the match just started and immediately Empoleon cornering Darkrai. And also, let's not forget the synergy drops too. They're quite different depending on what stage you're on.
And what we're seeing in Empoleon, one of those rush-down Pokemon that likes to be right in your face, really making life uncomfortable for Darkrai is a huge early advantage for MatPat, 571 to 72. Darkrai just trying to find some space, but no! Empoleon not even giving Darkrai a chance to tie his shoes, and very impressive victory by MatPat here, Vicky.
And as we saw around the end there, MatPat actually was able to use that move as an anti-air to catch him off guard and was able to follow up with even a stronger string of attacks.
JD, I'm noticing there's fewer words after a loss. There's more after a victory, though. I like the consistency I see from you, though. Never stop smiling right there. Let's get set for our next round here. Now, this is critical right here, D1, because if Empoleon gets the victory, that's the third and decisive game point for MatPat and Alistair. That'll give them their first point of this match. Early pressure being applied by Empoleon and the nice juggle right there, D1.
Yeah, and I also notice how Empoleon is also taking to the skies, making it very difficult for Darkrai to find quarter.
542 to just 4. Darkrai's going to need all the help it can get to try to keep Empoleon away from the victory. However, that Reshiram going to do some major damage and decrease the attack. However, Darkrai trying to back up, zone out. Empoleon missing a couple times. Darkrai going to negate the throw, get some damage on Empoleon. This could be something incredible. Here we go. Synergy burst activated for Darkrai. Hanging on the ropes with just 76 health, but here you go, Vicky.
Oh, but you cannot shield that, and that is exactly what we're talking about, Jordan. You cannot shield that. You can't just shield that burst.
You can't shield it, and there's no lifeguard on duty for Darkrai, so that's going to go ahead and do it. That's going to do it for the final round. The game and the point goes to MatPat and Alistair and our championship match. And that's what can throw people off with that specific burst move, Vicky, because you're thinking, all I got to do is block it. I'm good. No, fam, you're going to get drowned in the water.
Absolutely not. You need to try to jump over that. That is called Deep Blue Monarch, and it deals exactly 220 HP. You have to watch out for that, and you have to keep your distance when you see Empoleon have that burst, and that's when he's able to apply all that pressure, which could be really hard to get away from.
And right now, it looks like we're going to have two pros take the stage.
I thought we just had some pros taking the stage. Well, MatPat looked like the pro versus JD Witherspoon right there. My goodness. But yes, go back. We've got two pros very seasoned, especially Alistair.
Yes,
has been one of the staples of this community.
Yes, from the Pokken Tournament community, Alistair, a well-known Suicune main, and we have Nairo, who is actually a top-level Super Smash Bros. For Wii U professional.
Well, let's see who they go with. We have Mewtwo versus Suicune. Alistair with that Suicune. Suicune going to really enjoy zoning Mewtwo. Meanwhile, Mewtwo all around. Does Mewtwo try to get up in the face of Suicune, or does Mewtwo try to play the same game as Suicune and zone out as well, too?
This is going to be really interesting because early on, when Pokken Tournament came out for Wii U, Nairo did play Mewtwo. He had a pretty solid Mewtwo, but Alistair, he stuck to the game. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be pretty cool to see how Nairo's fundamentals as a pro player for Smash come into play here.
Nairo versus Suicune, early damage applied by Suicune. Suicune up in the face of Mewtwo, which is interesting. Typically, we see Suicune use that zoning, however, able to perfectly read Mewtwo's attacks here, Vicky.
And you can see right here, yes, Suicune does excel immensely with long range, but he's not having it right now, switching immediately to dual phase and nearly getting a perfect and landing that perfect, not even taking any damage.
And I think one thing we have to keep an eye open for is that Mirror Coat. You saw Nairo try to zone with projectiles, but immediately Suicune absorbed that and just dished out damage with the Mirror Coat.
Suicune's so difficult if you're going to play that zone versus zone matchup, and usually when you've got two Pokemon that like to zone each other, it's really just a matter of out-zoning the other, using the timer as your friend. But we saw Suicune that last match really do a fine job of the up-close rush-down face-off, and right here, countering once again, knocking Mewtwo back, has Mewtwo up against the wall. Mewtwo, though, able to back off Suicune.
And right now we have Alistair not even looking at the screen as he's playing against Nairo. What is going on here?
Alistair just looking at the Jumbotron right now, and that's putting some salt in the Kool-Aid right there, folks. Meanwhile, Suicune able to get the combo on Mewtwo. Nairo just furious right now. Let's see if that applies to the playstyle of Mewtwo. Meanwhile, Alistair just so cool, calm, and composed. Here comes the support Pokemon from Mewtwo, but no! Suicune with the grab and the juggle up against the wall in the air, and this one might be over here soon, Vicky.
This man does not even need to look at the screen. When I grow up, I want to be just like Alastor. As we just see right here, Alastor taking it over Nairo.
Alastor with the KO, gonna go ahead and take that first game point. Alastor needs to win 2 more games, and that will be the championship for MatPat and Alastor. Alastor, my goodness, if you didn't believe before that Alastor was sitting on top of the throne of this community, I think that was proof right there, D1.
Yeah, this guy coming out of NorCal, super strong player, very well established in the Pokken tournament community, and his Suicune is nothing to mess with.
Alastor and that Suicune had no issues whatsoever with Mewtwo in that previous game. Let's see if Mewtwo can try to find some type of adjustment. It seemed like Mewtwo, when it tried to get up close to Suicune, couldn't really do anything. Suicune did such a good job of just reading the attacks from Mewtwo and applying that pressure.
Yeah, Mewtwo, one of his best tools in field phase is that homing attack, but it looked like Alastor already had an answer for that. And here it is, Nairo trying to see if he can use the counter attack. He manages to get the Pierce with that Hyper Beam.
Nairo and the Pierce with the Hyper Beam going for the grab. That gets negated. However, Suicune misses on the attack. A nice cross and reversal from Nairo. However, Suicune able to counter that again, Vicky.
And all that patience that we're seeing from Alastor, not rewarded though, as Nairo answers back, switching the phase once again. He's trying to get up, but wow, fantastic counter, but it's not going to be doing anything.
Nairo showing some signs of life in this second game. However, Suicune knocking back Mewtwo. Suicune hasn't really operated in that zoning mode yet, but that'll do some major damage there. 420 to 115 advantage for Suicune. Gonna knock back Mewtwo, go back into that support Pokemon. Synergy Burst is there for Alastor if he wants to use it.
Synergy Burst is there, and when Suicune uses Synergy Burst, it is a long-range counter. That's something you have to keep into consideration when he's activated in Synergy Burst.
And D1, how about the chip damage that was applied by Suicune with that Synergy Burst? That's going to do some major damage, even if you're Mewtwo trying to block it.
And the projectile was just so hard to even jump over. As you see, it got bigger in burst mode.
First round goes to Alastor and the Suicune. Another victory in this round. That'll be the second game point for Alastor. Meanwhile, Suicune, Mewtwo getting a feel for each other at this point. The nice grab by Suicune. Let's go ahead and shift phases right here. Both players have their support Pokemon ready to go. Meanwhile, now here's Suicune D1 operating in that zone.
Just staying right outside and actually countering that projectile from the top. And there it is. Grab opportunity. Should be getting the shift. And this is going to be quite difficult dealing with Suicune here in field phase.
And Alastor is applying so much pressure, understanding that he's getting away with all these grabs because of all the pressure that he has applied to Nairo.
Alastor misses with the support Pokemon, however, some pressure, but no, Mewtwo able to get that ground attack, knockback Suicune, but Suicune with a nice little juggle and a combo, and that'll do it right there. But no, 3 health left for Mewtwo, but facing 458 with Suicune, that's gonna be a tough hill to climb here, D1.
It just looks like right now Alastor is content to stay back, fire an Aurora Beam, waiting for the opportunity to just take off that last little bit of HP.
And what's interesting is when you try to do that chip damage to end the round, you will stay alive at this point. Mewtwo with the grab and the throw up against the wall, though. Suicune just trying to find that last little hit. Mewtwo regenerating a little bit of health right there, but not enough as Suicune gets the hit on Mewtwo. That'll be the second game point for Alastor. 1 more game point, and they will claim this 2017 Pokken Tournament Deluxe Invitational Championship.
As you saw around the end there, he was actually canceling his counter, which is why he kept drifting back, trying to space himself properly so that way if Nairo ever committed to an action, he was always right there to commit after that.
And if you notice right there, Nairo fought his hardest to be able to get inside of the zoning from Alastor, but the moment Alastor was able to find just one slight opening, he dashed right underneath and went to the other side. He's quite content with his zoning.
And D1, what do you make about the support Pokemon choice here for Nairo and Mewtwo? Meanwhile, we've seen Suicune go with the Litten each time.
Going with the Frogadier, this is a character that shoots out the water gun, right? And it allows people to apply some pressure. It fires off once, there's a slight gap, and it fires again, allowing you to possibly sneak in the grab sometimes.
Mewtwo and Nairo, though, getting some major damage in those combos and juggles up against the wall. Suicune facing an early deficit in this one, 504 to 257. Suicune, how about those crosses, D1? Jumping over Mewtwo and then coming down with that attack on the backside.
It is just really difficult for Nairo to deal with, and here he is on the defensive, but gets the dive kick right there and some wake-up pressure.
Mewtwo trying to give Suicune a taste of its own medicine, and Litten getting the party started at that point.
And the reason you saw so much damage right there was because Alastor had low HP.
Right now, both fighters just a couple of hits away from a knockout at this point. Alastor and Suicune trying to zone out Mewtwo and Nairo, but Alistar and Suicune, they come back after that deficit early on and able to get the KO. And that Litten support Pokemon, Vicky, completely turned the tide of this match.
Yeah, that was fantastic use of Litten in particular, because when you do have low HP, Litten does deal more damage depending on the HP that you currently have.
How about the confidence of Alistar there, D1, to wait till his health was down low enough to know that Litten was going to connect and do some major damage?
Yeah, that was really smart stuff right there by Alistar. But he finds himself in the corner, and Nairo drops the combo, actually.
And Mewtwo and Nairo doing a fine job this game of keeping Suicune up against the wall. Suicune trying to zone out Mewtwo. Huge advantage right now for Mewtwo, 436 and 117. That's Nairo's Mewtwo, Alistar, Suicune, and right now we see Suicune trying to juggle Mewtwo up against the wall and grabbing the grab right here, Vicky.
Yes, he was able to juggle him against the wall because when Nairo was trying to jump away from him to cross him up, he used an anti-air to prevent that from happening, leaving him against the wall and taking more damage.
Oh, and Nairo and Mewtwo with the victory, and D1. We saw Mewtwo get Alistar and Suicune up against the wall and get those juggles, and that did some major damage early on.
And another thing we should talk about was the counter attack usage right there by Nairo. You can jump over it as it is a shockwave on the ground, but look, he's able to connect with it yet again. And mixing up Alistar with that dive kick, has him in the corner with the cycle cut. He has no answers.
Excellent use of that wall, and Mewtwo gonna go ahead and use the Synergy Burst. Mega Mewtwo right now against Litten. Oh no, Litten connects on that support Pokemon hit. Synergy Burst capable right now for Suicune. However, Suicune gonna counter right there, Vicky.
Yes, because Mewtwo's burst is actually a short-range grab. He was able to take advantage of that situation and turn it around without getting any extra damage from that burst, activating his own burst for an answer towards that.
Here comes Suicune with its burst move, gonna miss though. Mewtwo does a fine job blocking it. Mewtwo with the corner up against the wall against Alistar, and that's Suicune. And the grab on Suicune, and that will do it for the round. Very impressive, 2 victories. That game point goes to Nairo and Mewtwo, and just when it looked like Alistar and Suicune were gonna run away with it, you had Alistar looking at the jumbo screen. Nairo able to adjust his game and get an impressive victory right there.
Are we going to see a comeback? I think we're going to see a comeback.
Oh, don't call it a comeback. We certainly doing a great job here. It's very exciting. And D1, how about the change in play style for Nairo and Mewtwo? Really getting a lot more pressure in Suicune's face, making things uncomfortable, and really using that wall and some of those juggle combos.
Oh, indeed. You know, it looks like there was a severe lack of block right there from Alistar. You know, I believe he got a little bit too confident and probably thought that Nairo wasn't going to give him, you know, that much trouble, and because of that, Nairo was able to take it. So we'll see what happens here going into the next round.
2-1, Alistar leads. If Alistar wins this game, they will take the match point and the championship of this 2017 Pokken Tournament Deluxe Invitational. However, Nairo won the last game, still has plenty of things to say. Facing an early deficit right now, 517 to 331 advantage. Alistar with that Suicune, but Mewtwo getting some huge damage right there. D1 able to push back Suicune. Now both fighters kind of just feeling each other out. Mewtwo going up in close for the nice, impressive juggle once again, D1.
And beautiful stuff right there by Nairo. We have Alistar with 157 damage. He has the Popplio, which gives him a double jump and increased damage.
Mewtwo able to counter that dash attack from Suicune. Suicune, though, trying to get Mewtwo into a combo. Nice little juggle right there to buy some space for Alistar and that Suicune, Vicky.
And this is exactly what you want to see in Dual Face. You want to see all the racket percent right there. You want to see all that damage. And immediately when he switches back to Field Phase, you see all that different types of reverse rolls where the
Mewtwo, though, with that
my goodness!
Just comes out of nowhere, D1. And right when it seemed like Alistar and Suicune had Mewtwo and Nairo on the ropes, we saw that that combo in the middle of the level that just juggled Mewtwo for so much damage. Mewtwo stayed calm and patient, and with its back up against the wall, unleashed that Hyper Beam. Let's get to the next round in this one. Mewtwo, as we mentioned, had that early victory on Suicune. Now we see Suicune trying to give Mewtwo some juggling up against the wall here, Vicky.
That was a great example of the patience at the very of the end of the game. Nairo did not want to overcommit too much. He held shield, and immediately when he saw that opening, he took advantage of that and took the first round.
Alistar with the early advantage, 426 to 120, trying to get some more damage on Mewtwo, doing a fine job of zoning Mewtwo out right here, D1.
Oh, and here's what I was talking about. So much damage and the ability to double jump right there with Popplio. This is going to change Pokken Tournament forever.
Well, we saw the support Pokemon of Eevee being used, and that's going to go ahead and buff the attack for Suicune, and Suicune able to land some critical hits during that time that Mewtwo wasn't able to block. When you have that buff at that time, that's when the round goes so quickly, D1.
Oh, indeed, and right here it is again, the zoning from Alistar, but Nairo just getting right inside.
1-1 each on the round. A round victory here for Suicune would claim the championship for MatPat and Alistair. However, let's see if Nairo and Mewtwo have some other things to say about that to force yet another game. Meanwhile, early advantage right now for Suicune, 433 to 357. Suicune trying to zone Mewtwo at this point. Up in the face, Mewtwo able to rally back, go with that jungle right there, Vicky, and now he's got Suicune on the ropes up against the wall.
Now this is the close range situation. This is not the position where Alistair wants to be, but immediately kind of getting away from Mewtwo and answering his own with Litten.
Alistair trying to get some chip damage, but there's that Hyper Beam yet again. Here comes Synergy Mode for Suicune. Can Suicune land some critical hits? But no, the grab by Mewtwo gonna knock Suicune up against the wall. One sliver of life left for Suicune. Suicune gonna go ahead and use that burst move. Doesn't work though, gets the hit on Mewtwo. 230 to 10. Let's see if Suicune can create something unbelievable here. Oh, it's got Mewtwo up against the wall. This is for the championship if Suicune can counter back. But no!
Not enough!
Mewtwo and Nairo.
Just enough with that chip damage.
With their tournament lives on the line and just 40 health, D1, Mewtwo and Nairo able to stay calm and composed, a few breaths, and able to force yet another game.
It looks like we're about to go into the final match, if I'm not mistaken.
So here's what's interesting. If Nairo takes the victory,
Yes.
Nairo will get the game point, Nairo versus MatPat in the third match, which could be very interesting. Nothing against MatPat, but he might not be the caliber of player that Alistair is. So, is this essentially the tournament right here for Alistair and MatPat?
Well, it looks like we already have countering the homing attack. With that counter attack from Suicune, he goes forward, and just like I told you before, you can jump over Mewtwo's counter attack. So much damage right now inflicted on Nairo.
Two mythical Pokemon battling it out for the 2017 Pokken Tournament Deluxe Invitational Championship. Nairo with Mewtwo, Alistair with that Suicune. Right now, Suicune with the 498 to 270 advantage. Support gauge max for both of them. Look at Mewtwo and that Eevee looking for a few buffs here, Vicky, in that attack if he could use that support Pokemon.
Nairo finally able to rack up some damage on Alistair for some time there. I was starting to get a little worried, but it seems like Nairo's holding on to his own right now, pressuring Alistair so hard, switching it back to field phase.
Nairo able to get some pressure up against the wall, but Suicune going to keep Mewtwo at bay, and that is one round victory right here in this decisive game, either forcing a third match in this championship round, or Alistair and MatPat can go ahead and take the victory right now. MatPat getting that 3-0 sweep on JD Witherspoon. Yes, JD, we couldn't let you forget about the sweep. My apologies here. They've got the brooms out. Here we go. 630 to 512. Early advantage right now for Suicune over Mewtwo. Suicune going to miss right there. Mewtwo able to reverse, get a couple attacks behind. Here comes that wall juggle, D1.
And there it is with the wall spell as well, doing an extra 30 HP. And you see right now, Nairo just trying to lock down Alistair, but just moving around and shows no fear when it comes to this homing attack.
A victory here for Alistair will seal the deal in the championship for MatPat and Alistair. Meanwhile, Nairo, Mewtwo trying to force a third round, and if they can, force a third game in the match.
As you saw right there, he was actually able to use low stance to crouch right under that beam.
Alistair and the Suicune trying to get some more attacks on Mewtwo. That's going to be critical right there. 85 health for Mewtwo. Here comes the synergy burst from Suicune. Suicune going to try and time up that synergy move. Is this it? No! Mewtwo able to block, but no! Suicune able to counter the dash attack. And that is your championship. Alistair, MatPat, your champions of the 2017 Pokken Tournament Deluxe Invitational. Your thoughts on just the way that Suicune was able to close that out?
Well, overall, the zoning was just impeccable right there by Alistair, and his counters to Nairo's zoning with, first off, crouching underneath the Hyper Beam, using the Mirror Coat to also send ranged attacks in field phase right back at Nairo, made it very difficult for Nairo in the long range.
Very, very impressive. So as the champions hug it out with our runner-ups, sorry, no participation medals given out here for our runner-ups. There's only one champion here in this tournament. You saw Alistair with that Suicune, and how impressive was it for Nairo and the Mewtwo to really battle back, because we thought Alistair was going to run away this one with Suicune.
Nairo definitely had a lot of mix-ups when it came to his offense. There were times where if he was getting attacked, he would use the side strike, and other times when he was in Alistair's face and you'd expect a grab, he'd go for the dive kick.
So JD and Nairo, you guys didn't win, so I have to politely ask you to leave the stage at this point. Give it up for JD and Nairo. However, Alistair, MatPat, please step to the center of the stage here, Alistair and MatPat, because we have some special guests to present our awards for our champions. Please welcome from the Pokemon Company, Mr. Ishihara and 2 developers from Bandai Namco Studios, Mr. Hoshino and Mr. Suzaki, to present the awards to our champions of the 2017 Pokken Tournament Deluxe Invitational. Please welcome them to the stage.
いいですか。はい。じゃあポッケントーナメントデラックスインビテーショナル優勝おめでとうございます。
Congratulations on your victory here at the Pokken Tournament Deluxe Invitational.
我々からのプライズをお受け取りください。
We do have a prize to present to you, gentlemen.
おめでとうございます。
Congratulations.
Thank you once again. Now the fun doesn't stop here though. We have one more exhibition match. We have the developers from Bandai Namco Studios, Mr. Hoshino and Mr. Suzaki. They're gonna take on Matt, Pat, and Alistair in one exhibition round. So please, Mr. Hoshino, Mr. Suzaki, please step up to the stand here. Matt, Pat, Alistair, please take your side of the screen. Mr. Hoshino, Mr. Suzaki, please come this way. Mr. Hoshino first. And so we've got the developers versus the champions here, D1 and Vicky. What are your thoughts about Matt Pat, the YouTuber personality, taking on someone that developed this game?
I mean, these guys made the game, dude. Definitely going to be a really interesting situation, seeing how Matt, Pat, and Alistair are going up against Hoshino-san and Suzaki-san. Like
exactly what D1 said. These are the gentlemen who created Pokken Tournament. This is just going to be some other level. It's going to take a lot more than just knowing the basic fundamentals to be able to catch them by surprise.
I mean, you know, they still have a pro in Alistair who's on Matt Pat's side, right? But, I mean, who knows? Like, these guys right now, they don't even look phased that they're going up against Alistair and Matt Pat. They're like, this is just another day. I mean, we've seen the game way before it's even been released to the masses, so they probably have a couple tricks up their sleeve.
First, taking on Matt, Pat, and that Empoleon. So we saw Empoleon, Vicky, with a lot of success getting in the face of its opponents. However, Krogunk has no problem playing that rush-style play. He's going to want to make sure that he can read and counter very well. So Matt, Pat, this will be exciting, taking on one of the developers here, D1. And if you look at Krogunk right now doing a fine job of sort of zoning out Empoleon, getting a feel for its attacks, doing a great job blocking as well, too.
Yeah, we're going to see the rush down right now from Empoleon. Actually, wait, getting countered. The Krogunk jumping into the skies, making it very difficult. Mr. Suzaki, look at his Krogunk go. A character who has a lot of RNG when it comes to his special attacks. I wonder if he even knows what's going to happen next.
Mr. Suzaki keeping Empoleon out of range and doing a great job with Krogunk. Krogunk, as we mentioned, can kind of play that all-around style as well, too, and making sure to just keep Empoleon far away and then using those dash attacks. But nice counter there, Vicky, from Empoleon, and the grab from Empoleon also.
Immediately changing the phase, and you know, Krogunk actually does excel immensely when it comes to speed. He's incredibly fast, but unfortunately, with that RNG style like he has, he can honestly just deframe himself when it comes to this burst. Oh my goodness, but with another phase shift, he's applying so much pressure right now. Immediately using Litten with his low HP, dealing all that damage as you just saw right there on Matt Pat.
Mr. Suzaki's a bad man right there, getting the victory over Empoleon, and how about that? Turning it around. That's a little bit of a rope-a-dope right there, D1. Sort of make Matt Pat feel good about himself. Let him know, yeah, kid, I understand you're playing this game, but I developed this thing.
My hands are in my face right now, dude. I can't. I just can't.
Let's get set for the next round here between Empoleon, selected by Matt Pat, and Krogunk being used by Mr. Suzaki. Mr. Suzaki from Bandai Namco Studios knows everything you need to know about this game right here. Able to jump over the top of Empoleon, and what we're seeing from Krogunk, D1, is a fine job of zoning out Empoleon. Empoleon not having a lot of chances to get in the face of Krogunk and apply some pressure.
Yeah, interestingly enough, while he's using that poison stick, he can't kill the opponent. Oh my gosh!
Did you see that movement?
He's just, and you saw him just chilling on the floor as well. Look at him posing.
Krogunk, flex on him, why don't you? 419 to 268 advantage at this point. Krogunk just playing around with Empoleon. Here comes Empoleon using that synergy burst. Here comes the burst move, but I think Krogunk's going to be in the air and avoids it there, Vicky.
That's exactly what we were talking about earlier, and that's the best way to avoid Empoleon's burst.
Empoleon with the grab against Krogunk. Unka up in the air, going to knock Mr. Suzaki back though. Mr. Suzaki down 114 to 275. Empoleon with some more pressure right there. Oh, 2 health left for Mr. Suzaki. 1 health, however, nice little crossover. Here comes Krogunk trying to turn the tables here, D1.
Oh my goodness, mixing up his landing, but it's not enough. MatPat taking it over Mr. Suzaki.
The constant, consistent pressure by MatPat towards the second half of that round right there. Vicky able to get the victory, and Mr. Suzaki and MatPat go to a 3rd round to decide this game here.
And did you see around the end how Krogunk extended his pouches on his cheeks to be able to float over the opponent to try to mix up his landing and confuse the opponent?
And here it is right now, chilling out in field phase is Mr. Suzaki, but gets caught right there by MatPat. Let's see MatPat's rush down that he was able to do to JD earlier today.
Mr. Suzaki and Krogunk able to counter right there. 424 deficit though for Mr. Suzaki. However, going to drop down, get some damage, and look at the debuff that it just applied to Empoleon here, D1.
Yes, right there, the defense is lowered, which means that you're going to see some more damage off of MatPat whenever Mr. Suzaki strikes.
Meanwhile, Krogunk and that Litten gonna miss with that support Pokemon tag, but here comes the synergy burst from Krogunk. Gonna try and get some massive damage here. Big hit, is this gonna be enough? No, misses with the burst move. However, able to still zone out Empoleon. 341, 113 advantage. Winner of this round wins the game. Empoleon and MatPat trying to fight back. No, Krogunk gonna break through the grab. Flexes on him. 40 health left for Empoleon. Empoleon gonna miss with the swipe. Krogunk going to the air this time. And the crossover by Mr. Suzaki. Stone cold killer. MatPat falling to Mr. Suzaki. Very impressive performance by Krogunk and Mr. Suzaki. And D1, how about Krogunk? Operated by Mr. Suzaki, able to leap into the air, crossover Empoleon at the end of that.
Literally one word, unpredictable. Mr. Suzaki, going up against him right there on stage, says, you're only gonna get 1 chance to beat me, and unfortunately you lost. You'll never get to face me again.
Alistair's gonna bat clean up for MatPat and Alistair. Going to be interesting to see if Alistair goes with that Suicune. Meanwhile, we have Mr. Hoshino. Who will Mr. Hoshino go with here? As you have Alistair, as you talked about before, D1, at the top of this community, and we've seen him play so well with a Mewtwo and a Suicune, but now you're facing off against one of the developers of this game.
Yeah, Hoshino-san definitely might have some tricks up his sleeve as well. We actually have Alistair not going with Suicune.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting selection by Alistair. You got to figure he's well-rounded in every single character. But we're going to go back to Gen 1 here for a classic throwdown on the schoolyard of Charizard against Pikachu at this point. Litten going to be chose for that support Pokemon here, Vicky. And right now, in the foreground, you're going to have Charizard, controlled by Mr. Hoshino. Meanwhile, Alistair going with Pikachu. And Pikachu, one of those players that's a little bit more well-rounded. Meanwhile, our first sort of power player in Charizard here, Vicky.
Charizard really likes to play mid-range, but you also have to take into consideration that he does fly as well, so that could be a way for him to mix up Pikachu. As you saw in the last game, Krogunk could do the same thing.
Pikachu with a nice juggle right there, gonna back off Charizard. Let's go ahead and shift phases at this point, connecting with a couple of projectiles here, and really what we've seen from Alistair, D1, is a fine job of taking advantage of that field phase.
Yeah, and it looks like he's not even afraid of the Fire Punch, which is an option that Charizard does have. Here it is. Great follow-up by Alistair, taking that first round over Hoshino-san.
Pikachu and Alistair taking that round. If they can get this round, they'll go ahead and take that game here, Vicky.
And we saw all that pressure from Alistair because Pikachu in particular plays very close range and is incredibly fast. And when he's in mid-range, it's a little bit difficult for him to rack up all that extra damage. But we're not really seeing that too much right now. He's going to have to try to bring this back.
Charizard with the grab and the throw is going to do some major damage on Pikachu. 600, 266. Let's serve it up again right here, D1.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Hoshino has that tech. Keep your eyes open.
Mr. Hoshino. Huge advantage over Alistair and that Pikachu. Let's see if Pikachu can bounce back, though, trying to get the cross. Blocked by Charizard. Charizard going to knock back Pikachu. Charizard bringing down some pain. However, Charizard with the third grab of the match. Mr. Hoshino, unbelievable. Able to keep Alistair at bay and connect on not one,
Yes.
not two, but 3 grabs in that round.
Absolutely. You can tell this guy is a master of rock, paper, scissors, or janken, as they would say as well. This is out of control. Using the grabs to beat the counterattack, getting extra damage because it is a critical hit. Here we have 3rd round with Alistair versus Hoshino-san.
Do you think Alistair's a little starstruck at this point? Maybe that's getting into his head, maybe throwing him off possibly.
I mean, I would be.
Pikachu getting some early pressure on Charizard. Winner of this round will decide the game between Mr. Hoshino and Alistair. Meanwhile, Charizard getting that block, getting the hit on Pikachu. Pikachu, though, able to try and counter. Charizard doing a fine job of reading and blocking there, Vicky.
And it seemed like that for a little bit, that Alistair was going to be able to maneuver himself around Mr. Hoshino, but is it enough assist coming? So another grab from Mr. Hoshino. How is he going to avoid this?
Mr. Hoshino has Alistair seeing stars with all of these grabs right now. Charizard able to deal and try to get through a couple of tough projectiles. Meanwhile, Pikachu connects with the counter, though, and Pikachu able to knock Charizard back. Let's shift phases here. Pikachu, light, nimble, mobile. Charizard trying to get in his mug. Meanwhile, Mr. Hoshino down to 146. Let's get some Mega Charizard X here. Mega Charizard trying to put some pressure. Here comes Linton. Oh, that's going to connect on Charizard, knock it back. 99 health for Mr. Hoshino. Here comes Pikachu in burst mode. Let's see if Pikachu can connect with that burst move right here. Here comes Popplio using some support Pokemon health. Pikachu still in burst mode. Charizard getting some attacks here. Charizard with a little bit more health and a couple of boosts right here too, D1.
But right there, that counter from that fire punch, and it looks like it's getting really intense here. The diving kick.
Mr. Hoshino battles back and gets the victory over Alistair. How impressive was that, D1?
I mean, Mr. Hoshino, what did I tell you? What did I tell you? The man is one of the developers right here, the directors of the game. He knows a lot about the game. When it came to the mix-ups, it looks like Alistair's Pikachu just couldn't do it. He was getting caught by many seismic tosses. You saw him go for that tail whip every time, going into the flight, and then just immediate seismic toss. It was super, super difficult to deal with. And right now we have Alistair seeing stars, just like Jordan said before.
We were talking about being starstruck, but my goodness, I was incredibly starstruck just by watching that. I can't believe how Alistair may feel right now.
Oh, definitely. But a big thank you to Ishihara-san, Suzaki-san, and Hoshino-san for bringing Pokken Tournament Deluxe to the Switch. We are thankful.
Very impressive right there. They get their artwork, their awards. Give it up for Mr. Hoshino, Mr. Suzaki, Matt, Pat, Alistair, your champions of the 2017 Pokken Tournament Deluxe Invitational. Stick around. We got the Arms Open Invitational coming later today. Give it up one more time for them.
ご来場の皆さん、そして中継をご覧になっている世界中のスプラトゥーンファンの皆さん、こんにちは。
To everyone here in the booth and to all the Splatoon fans watching around the world from home, hello and welcome.
私は人の姿に変身する不思議なイカを研究しているイカ研究所の研究員です。
I am a researcher from Squid Research Labs, and we make it our business to study these mysterious squid-like creatures.
今日は通訳として助手を一人連れてきました。
Today I've brought an assistant with me to help with translation.
スプラトゥーンの世界大会がいよいよ開催されます。
Well, it is finally time for this worldwide Splatoon 2 tournament.
いかがですか皆さん。この世界各地から4つのチームが並んだこの光景。
What do you think, everybody? We've brought together 4 of the best teams from around the world.
まるで昨年の10月、任天堂スイッチにおいて新種のイカが発見された時のあの光景が蘇ったかのようです。
To me, it's almost as though we've been able to bring to life those scenes we witnessed in the Switch video from last year in October, where we discovered a new form of Inkling.
発売前から世界一を決めようというのもちょっと気の早い話ですが、
But we may be getting a bit ahead of ourselves to decide the world's greatest team before the game has been released.
今日は各地のスプラトゥーントーナメントを勝ち抜いたトッププレイヤーたちの熱い戦いを皆さんと一緒にじっくり研究したいと思います。
All of these players have won their own regional tournaments to get to this stage, and I look forward to enjoying and researching their exciting Splatoon play with all of you.
選手の皆さん、頑張って、そして試合を楽しんでください。
To all the players here, we wish you the best of luck, and most importantly, make sure to have fun.
Good luck!
Since release in 2015, Splatoon has become an international phenomenon. Teams have battled, they've splatted, and they've made it rain. The best Squid squads have fought their way to the top, and now that the ink has settled, the turf has been won, 4 teams are left swimming. Team Dynamo, Rising Moon, Blue Ringed Octolings, and Team Deadbeat. Now they've descended onto the City of Angels to take part in the first ever 2017 Splatoon 2 World Inkling Invitational, with the hope of getting their hands on the most beautiful piece of metal in the world. An award so perfect, it stands as a beacon for squids and kids all over the world. An award etched with the names of players that will make history today. A trophy with a name so splatastic, it will be remembered throughout the ages. The one, the only. This just says insert trophy name here. You need a name for the trophy. Every good trophy has a name. Oh boy, here it is. The Splatoon Sterling Squid. So who will be crowned the greatest Splatoon players on Earth? Get ready to splat!
Good afternoon, E3, and welcome to the 2017 Splatoon World Inkling Invitational. I'm Jordan Kent. I'll be your spray-by-spray host for this tournament. Joining me on my left, we have Ashley Esqueda, our lead Splatalist, and on her left, our Inkspert from Nintendo Treehouse, Eric Smith. As you saw, we have 4 of the finest Splatoon teams in the world converging right here on this stage for a fantastic tournament. And before we get to the tournament layout, Ashley, these teams have inked their way through some of the best competition. Share a little bit with us as far as their journey to get here.
They have all come a long way to get here. Dynamo in Japan beat out over 700 teams collectively at the Koshien, Splatoon Koshien. And then Deadbeat, U.S. Inkling Open champions, only dropped 1 match, which was amazing. Blue Ringed Octolings ended up winning the 2017 Australia-New Zealand Splatoon Cup. And then Europe, Rising Moon, coming, not only beating everyone in their home country of France, but also all of Europe in the ESL Go for Splatoon Europe Grand Final.
Very impressive resumes for all of our teams. And Eric, why don't you share with the folks how things are going to get started with this tournament today?
Sure thing. We're going to start with a round robin where each team will play each other once. We'll then move to the elimination phase, where we'll have some best-of-5 series, and then the grand finals, which will be a best-of-7.
You mentioned that best-of-5 and then the best-of-7 in the grand finals. You'll get a chance to see a variety of game modes and maps on display in this tournament build. And it's very exciting to see what these teams can do. They've had a chance to familiarize themselves with the game. And one thing that we see from these teams here, Eric, is just their ability to communicate so well. Share with us how these teams will be communicating today. And then, of course, when we get our hands on our copies a little bit later, how we can communicate with each other.
But, of course, so these teams today are wearing the same sort of headsets you see like on other sort of competitive video game competitions. But when the game comes out, players will actually be able to voice chat with each other via an app that you download. For smart devices, we will be communicating actually more about that functionality closer to launch.
Obviously, getting the chance to chat with each other, very important. And Ashley, we get started with Turf War here. It's how we all fell in love with Splatoon at the very beginning, our very first introduction to it. But however, these players are a little bit better than you and I.
A little bit, yeah.
When they get to Turf War, what are some of the things they're keeping in mind as far as the beginning and then especially the end of each match?
Well, obviously, the name of the game is ink. So Turf War is all about putting ink on the ground. It's not necessarily about splatting your opponent. It's about having the most ink at the end of the round. So you're going to see these players play at a very high level. There's going to be a lot of mobility. It's going to go really fast. They are moving so quick. They're getting behind. You're going to see flanking. You're going to see lane kind of management. It's going to be great. You're going to see all of the teams kind of work towards coming into a center location on the map and really fighting for that real key piece of territory.
Eric, last minute of each match, we've talked to every team. They've talked about how it's so important to make sure you don't get splatted because that's how the tide can turn in any match.
Absolutely. If you get splatted in the last minute, you're taking yourself out of the equation and you're outnumbered. The enemy team is able to ink way more than you are at that point, so you got to stay alive.
Well, we've talked about 4 of the finest teams here. Let's take a closer look at one of them. Our team representing Europe, here's a look at Rising Moon.
Stonehenge, Easter Island, Roswell, Rising Moon. This team, comprised of so-called Europeans, has traveled to Los Angeles to compete at the 2017 Splatoon 2 World Inkling Invitational. But where did they really come from? Anonymous sources trace their origins back to the mysterious place called France. These alleged shapeshifters have adopted the guise of a polite demeanor, yet beneath that facade lurks some of the most intense, cryptic, and enigmatic gamers looking to dominate the competition and the competition's children. Binks is an unhinged maniac with the blasters, and the mainstream media doesn't want you to know that after achieving rank of S+99, he immediately devoured his controller.
I did achieve S+99, but I did not eat my controller. Why would anyone do that?
The real question is, why wouldn't anyone ever not do that? Cebu, Cebu, Boy.
It's Cebu.
If I'm not mistaken, that's an ancient Mayan word meaning government covert government operative.
I don't think that's actually true.
How much are they paying you to say that?
Nobody's paying me.
How much? The one known as Cebu supposedly once annihilated 7 Inklings in 20 seconds. Then there is the one that message boards have dubbed Inky. This one has a reputation for lording over his minions in tower control.
You know, I'm just here to have fun. If we win, we win. If we lose, we lose.
And if you're exposed as an Inkling race looking to achieve global Splatoon domination,
then we win?
At least 12.5 anonymous message boards have designated Desai as a Charger fanatic who has played over 3,400 hours of Splatoon.
We're just here to have a good time and play Splatoon. We just love the game.
And you have an insatiable thirst for the ink of your enemies?
No, we'll just play them and hope we win.
It might look like Rising Moon is just an ordinary team who simply loves to play Splatoon. But they won't pull the wool over my eyes. Wait, did you see that? Did you see his eyes? Come back here. I knew it.
That is Rising Moon from Europe. And Binks, if you get the victory, try not to eat the controller, okay? We only have a select few here. Just try to keep your teeth off of that here. We're getting set for our first match. We've got Turf War on Starfish main stage. So let's take a closer look at this level and how these teams will approach it. You look at Starfish main stage. And in the middle, obviously a main stage. How fitting is that? The team that can lock that down, and that's going to be point number 1 on our map as we take a closer look. When these two teams get started, they're going to want to work their way to the middle of the stage here, Ashley. And Ashley, once you get to that middle of the stage, it's important to get a push into the enemy territory as well, too.
Indeed. You want to cut off any lane that your enemy is going to be able to come at you from. The main stage is really interesting because it is a little bit raised, so you're getting a really nice advantage from which to splat your opponents.
Yeah, there are a couple of side entrances to that main stage where if you're on it, you have to watch those or someone could sneak up behind you too, though.
And it's also interesting because there are a couple points in the main stage where if players are maneuverable, they can get to some perches and get some leverage and really try to flank the opposition, Ashley.
Yeah, this is going to be a key strategy on main stage. You're going to want to get up high, especially the Charger players for each of these teams. If they're running a Charger, you want to get that sniper up to the highest nest you can possibly find, even if it's the smallest sliver of inkable space, and have them start taking out their opponents.
And Ashley, we were talking with Dynamute before things got started, and they said it's very important for each player to have a specific role. So that means you're sometimes going to see different weapons from different characters, not everybody rolling out with the same weapon.
Yeah, you definitely want, we call it, if you're not familiar with competitive gaming, we call it a meta. So you want to have a really good balance. Some weapons don't perform as well long range, but you would see a Charger kind of take on somebody with a roller. So it looks like we are getting started. We're going for it.
We are getting started. Our very first match, Starfish, main stage, Dynamute going to be in the pink. Meanwhile, Rising Moon in the yellow. Rising Moon, they're going to go with the heavy splatling, a Slosher, an Octobrush, and a Dynamo Roller. Meanwhile, Dynamute, they've got a Charger, a Splattershot, Pro, a Slosher, and a Roller. Early splat right there by Dynamute as they get the initial 4-3 advantage on the field. 2:30 left in this one, and already, actually, we see Dynamute going towards the middle of the map.
Yeah, Dynamute, and we've got Kagashino and Dynamon getting taken out right there on the main stage. Binks is still up with the Slosher, going crazy up there, trying to establish kind of positioning, and Muscular is coming up and going to try to support here with a Roller.
Both teams fighting hard for that main stage right now. Nobody's really wrestled control of that. However, we start to see Rising Moon with the majority of the ink in the middle of this map. They're going to look to try to make a push into Dynamute territory here, Ashley.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you can see some of Rising Moon haven't quite filled out their area yet in terms of ink, and we're going to hopefully see them do that. What's going on over there?
Dynamon with the absolutely terrific splat on Seibu in midair. That's going to be critical. It's now a 4-3 advantage on the field for Dynamute. And the splat, however, it takes one roller to splat another roller as both teams still haven't seized control of the middle area here, Ashley.
Yeah, it's I think one of the most dangerous things in Splatoon 2 is going to be that vertical splash from that roller. That makes people like Dynamo very dangerous.
Kagashino getting splatted by Seibu's that very impressive right there. Meanwhile, we see a Stingray being deployed. Seibu with that Octobrush, trying to get some work done in the middle. Meanwhile, Dynamute controlling the middle of this map still. Nobody able to make that initial push quite yet. However, we see Seibu getting splatted once again by Dynamon.
Yeah, Dynamon is really dangerous. I mean, that's his name, Dynamon. You know he's coming at you with a roller, and Seibu doing a really good job, though, of making sure to get back to his teammates. This is a really great high-level strategy that a lot of these players use.
1 minute left. Neither team with a strong advantage at this point. It's still any Squids match. However, we start to see the Ink Storm being deployed. Here's a look at the map. Dynamute with a little bit of an advantage. 50 left. 4-0 on the field right now.
That's a
4-0.
advantage, especially in the last minute. Oh, man, Dynamon's going to be able to get a lot of ink on the ground.
4-0 advantage. You got to be like Salt and Pepper and push it, baby. Meanwhile, 36 seconds left. 4-3 on the field for Dynamute. And they're starting to get into the Rising Moon territory as we see some Tenta missiles from Kakashino being deployed. Rising Moon, they're going to have to fight hard to get that middle. However, Dynamute doing a fine job of just saving those specials. We see a little bit of action going here on the left side. But Dynamute able to hold it down, and another splat by Dynamon right there. Going to avoid the heavy splatling damage right there. 10 seconds left. It's going to be close. Another splat for Dynamon. That's why they call him Dynamon. Another splat. Very impressive. Dynamute doing what you need to do at the end of this match, and that will most likely secure it, staying alive and getting those critical splats as we see Dynamute getting the initial victory in our round-robin match here in Turf War, Ashley.
Yeah, Dynamute really, like you said, pushed it in that last minute. They were able to get out there, get some really key splats. When they have 45 seconds left, they had a 4-0 advantage. That is going to allow you not only to put down ink in places maybe there is no ink, but also take away from your opponent.
Absolutely. You saw Kakashi and Dynamon at the very end there. Splatting opponents at the 1 minute mark. They both had 7 splats total, and so we actually talked about that splat statistic actually at the end of a match.
Yeah, this is really cool. So in Splatoon 2, instead of a how many times you got a splat, how many times you got splatted, we're going to see a combination of splats and assists. So this is going to be a really helpful thing for a lot of support players to get some of those really big numbers up on the screen, because if you're the Gretzky of Splatoon, I mean, you want to be rewarded for that. You want to be appreciated.
We saw midway through this match, nobody really had the advantage. It wasn't until about the 1 minute mark that Dynamute was able to get that initial hold, and it was all on that 4-0 advantage that they used right there, Eric. By the way, terrific job on the camera.
Thank you very much.
Eric made sure that we get a great view of the field right there. But looking back at this match and some of these critical moments as we look at our instant replay, Dynamon going to be able to use that roller down below, going to avoid the Stingray, get the splat, and then, yes, a 2-on-1, that's always going to work out well for the team with more Squids on the field at that point, Ashley.
Absolutely, and Dynamon so good at being able to jump out of hiding and use that vertical splash to just wreck people, and it's really fantastic how he's just out there just popping out from behind a corner. I mean, I know if I ever saw Dynamon out in Inkopolis, I would not want to be on the receiving end of that roller.
You want to be friends with him.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You want to befriend Dynamon.
Let's take an early look at our standings as we just got done with our first match in round robin play. You see Dynamute at the top with 1 victory. Meanwhile, Rising Moon 0-1. It's okay. We still love you. You got plenty of matches to play. Orange wedges in between matches, and I wouldn't go against any team with the team mom. We're getting set for our very next turf war. It's going to be on the reef, and let's take a closer look at this reef level. It's going to be one of the new ones in this game, of course, and pretty simple when you get to turf war. Essentially, you want to make sure that there's going to be an overpass area at spot number 1. Both teams can either attack from up top, Ashley, or go underneath the overpass to get an angle on the opposition.
Yeah, that bridge is going to be a highly contested area. You definitely want to make sure that you are on that bridge and you are watching, because there are so many ways to get to the middle of this map. So, and also a lot of different areas to hide in this map and jump out. And as we have seen from these elite level players, they are really good at hiding and surprising their opponents.
And Eric, we saw the Tenta missiles, a new special being deployed in that previous match, and it's one of those weapons that you can use to not only create some damage, but find out where the opposition is at too.
Absolutely. The Tenta missiles has 2 phases. So the first one is a targeting phase. You actually click the button, and a big reticle comes up, and you can see through walls to see exactly where enemies are. And how many ever enemies you target, so you can target the entire enemy team. And then when you pull that trigger, it shoots out 4 missiles per enemy and splats them.
Let's get set for our second match in Turf War. We've got Australia/New Zealand. The Blue Ring Doctorlings taking on Deadbeat of USA. Blue Ring Doctorlings going to be in the purple ink. Meanwhile, Deadbeat in that turquoise ink. Let's get things started. Deadbeat going to go with a roller, slosher, splatter shot, and the heavy splatling. Meanwhile, Blue Ring Doctorlings, a couple of splatter shots, Nocto Brush, and a charger. Initial action, this one actually looks like Deadbeat making a push for the top of that overpass.
I gotta say, really surprised Power not picking up a charger. He was so dominant with that inside at the US Inkling Open. We're already seeing some splats happening. Deadbeat taking one player down really quickly. But yes, it is a fight for that bridge. It is the place to be if you're on the reef.
Maddie Kuma putting in some work, and the Blue Ring Doctorlings with a 4-3 advantage as they take advantage of that overpass. A lot of purple ink on the field at this point, but plenty of time.
Double splash.
Still, for the Blue Ring Doctorlings, we see SpongeBob climbing up, and Ashley, this is another thing we see from the players, their ability to maneuver and get to these high perches that are very difficult to get to, but they can have a vantage point.
Absolutely. In Turf War, inking a vertical surface isn't going to give you extra percentage, but it really helps your team get to places they need to be able to see your opponents and take them out.
Power with the heavy splatling, trying to keep some distance and zone out. The Blue Ring Doctorlings 4-1 advantage for Deadbeat, though. Here's their opportunity. Don't forget, you can look at the top of your screen and any one of those squids that's flashing. That means they've got a special charge up ready to go. 4 things are even once again on the field. A lot of purple, though, as the Blue Ring Doctorlings getting a bit of a push on Deadbeat. Deadbeat on their heels a little bit here, Ashley.
Yeah, I'm really surprised to see this, but you know what? Sometimes if you can make those pushes, if you can get those splats and take out some key people, you're going to be able to have a great advantage in putting down a lot of ink while someone else is waiting to respawn.
4-3 advantage, Blue Ring Doctorlings with about 1:12 left. It's starting to look pretty even. Slight advantage for Blue Ring Doctorlings. And Latius with an unbelievable splat on Wit. So impressive. Just the dexterity and aim of Latius right there, Ashley.
Very, very good play. I mean, these Charger players, one of the things I love about Chargers in Splatoon 2 is you're actually able to drop down into the ink, save that charge up, pop out really quickly, and make that shot. I mean, we've seen some people jump out of the ink, go airborne, and make those perfect splats.
You can't sleep on Deadbeat, though, as Hexen getting a major splat at the top of that overpass, and they're starting to get a bit of a push with a 4-2 advantage briefly over Blue Ring Doctorlings, but Blue Ring Doctorlings respond right here with another splat. Here comes a splash down on Wit. A dunk in your face right there by SpongeBob. 30 seconds left. 2-2 on the field. Anybody's match at this point. We're starting to see a little bit more turquoise take over for Deadbeat, though. SpongeBob trying to distance himself real quickly, Ashley. What does SpongeBob need to do to help out Blue Ring Doctorlings at this moment?
Definitely get out there, take a friend, take a teammate, be together, and you've got to win those one-on-ones. So here they are right here fighting against Tim.
Deadbeat trying to close things out right here. We have another splat. It's 4-1. Blue Ring Doctorlings, they have time for one more final push. Did they get enough? Oh.
That's close.
This is going to be close. This is in Judd's pause right here. Let's see what happens. Our final score. I can't tell you from my vantage point.
No.
Let's see here. Quiet. And the victory for the Blue Ring Doctorlings, 44.7. They get the initial victory over Deadbeat. And Ashley, it was the final 6 seconds that we saw of Blue Ring Doctorlings
really
taking that 4-1 advantage to overcome Deadbeat in that critical part.
If you take out somebody on the opposite team in the last 20 seconds of the game, if you take out 2, that is enough to swing a match. And I can speak for myself and all the hours I've played Splatoon. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there feel the same way. You've been in a match, you feel really good, and then all of a sudden 2 people on your team go down, and then it's over. All of a sudden, everything changes.
Yeah, everything changes. And if you think about it, let's say you ink 5% of the map, but if you're also covering the enemy's 5%, that's essentially a 10% difference. So it can really swing a big amount in that last 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Let's not slow down this hype train. Let's get set for another matchup. This time it's going to be Japan and Dynamute versus USA and Deadbeat. And we saw Deadbeat. They lose to Blue Ring Doctorlings, but they get a chance to bounce back at this point. And you look at what Dynamute was able to do in their first match. What's something that Deadbeat might try to do differently this time around?
I mean, I feel like they got to just put a charger in Power's hands, right? I mean, that was what got them here. But the charger is so different in Splatoon 2. It doesn't feel the same. It's a little bit different. It's definitely it's changed.
It's changed. I wouldn't say it's totally different, but I mean, yeah, you can store your charge now. So before in the first Splatoon, you'd have to sit up kind of on a perch, fully charge your shot, and then let it go.
And you couldn't hide in the ink if somebody was coming after.
Yes, but now you can charge your shot, hide in the ink, pop back up somewhere else while still retaining that charge.
Full charge ready to
immediately blast them.
And that's a huge, huge advantage for anybody looking to play a charger in Splatoon 2.
Right. Well, we also talk about those specials, and we have a contingent from Ink TV that just went berserk when we saw that splashdown. And that special right there, when you look at it, Eric, it's one of those specials that if you can time it perfectly, it can create a huge swing of momentum in the match, and it also just looks so freaking awesome.
It looks awesome.
Really
because when you activate it, people scatter because they're scared. They're like, okay, this explosion's about to happen. I'm getting out of here. But you also can actually execute it while you're in the middle of a super jump. So when you're super jumping to one of your opponents on one of your teammates on the front lines, if they're surrounded by enemies, you're going to drop down, hit that, and it's going to create this huge explosion, taking out 2 or 3 enemies possibly.
Yeah.
It's a new Splatoon, which means we have yet another new map as they get set for Turf War. This is going to be Humpback Pump Track, Eric. And what's unique about this level is the other ones we've seen, there's sort of a middle area, and then each team has their respective half of the map. Humpback Pump Track, though, it's going to be a circular map with a lot of ways to access that major hump in the middle.
Right. That major hump is very important to hold down because it gives you such good sight of the entire 360 map. And there's so many ways to approach it. It's going to be hard to hold once you do get it.
But Ashley, we also have this outer track right here where, yes, if you have a BMX, you can pop a couple wheelies on the outside as you're spreading some ink around the area. You've got to really keep your head on a swivel when you see how many different ways that you can get flanked on this map.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this track is actually a really key part of this map just because this is going to enable your team to get all the way around the map, get behind your opponents, take them by surprise. And if you can keep that lane open almost all the way around, you're probably in really good positioning to get some key splats.
It is also consistent with some of the other maps as well, too, because there's a little bit of verticality in this map as well, too. We notice there are a lot of ledges that are just a little bit higher than jumping range that you've got to really be able to balance when you're trying to take on your opponent and really observe them. How does that factor into Humpback Pump Track?
I mean, anytime you can get a high ground, that's always an advantage, especially for anybody with a roller, a slosher, a charger. I mean, those are great weapons to have when you're up high. So I think in this map, being able to be eye level with that mound in the middle of the map, even if you're not right in the center of it, is a really great way to actually offensively try to take back that section of Humpback Pump Track.
As we get set for this third match in our round-robin Turf War portion of this tournament, one other thing, let's get real technical here, Eric. We talked about the splashdown. You mainly have to be on the same level as the opponent that you're trying to splash down because that splashdown is coming from the epicenter. If you're behind a wall or below a ledge where you are blocked from something, you won't get splatted.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have cover nearby and you see someone using a splashdown, you better get behind them.
Yeah,
let's
take
get to our third match here. Deadbeat taking on Dynamew. Dynamew in the pink, Deadbeat in the blue. Both teams getting an initial start. Deadbeat going with a couple of splatter shots, a heavy splatling and a slosher. Meanwhile, Dynamew, our first look at the splat dualies, the slosher, a charger, and a roller as Kakashino getting the party started in the middle of the map. However, Tim with a splat from behind, Ashley.
Yeah, Tim got the splat, but then, of course, Dynamon comes in with that roller. Hexen and Dynamon having a 1v1 right here in the middle of the map. This is really exciting. I always love seeing great players go one-on-one. But now, Dynamon has Kakashino, and it looks like Hexen is going down.
You see Dynamon's point of view, but also the rest of Dynamew doing a fine job of just inking their half of the map right now, being very diligent. We see a Stingray being deployed. 2 specials on the field for Dynamew as they have the 4-2 advantage over Deadbeat at this point. Kakashino with that slosher, trying to get things pink all over the place, and then here come the Tenta missiles.
Here come the Tenta missiles. I mean, you're going to see Kakashino put down immense amounts of ink with that slosher. He's going to have those Tenta missiles a lot in every single game.
Kakashino getting the splat on Wit just there. Meanwhile, Power on the outside BMX track of Humpback Pump Track. However, a splat for splat right there as we have a 3-2 advantage for Dynamew on the map. 140 left in this one. It's still pretty even. However, Dynamew controlling most of the middle hump here, Ash.
Yeah, Dynamew kind of doing a really good job here, but Hexen, you can see, kind of taking that lower map for US for Deadbeat, and now Kakashino bringing on that slosher, and it's a splat for splat, just the same.
Wit unleashing some Tenta missiles right there, going to try try to advance with that slosher, just being slow and careful and making sure, just covering the area with ink. And you always want to make sure that you've got a place to move and a place to get out to before you advance further.
That's a really good point. I mean, one of the best things you can do for your teammates is, and yourself, give yourself an exit lane. Because a lot of these players, I mean, if you're getting splatted, you're out of the game for a second. And what you've got to do is you've got to get away, take a minute, and get a teammate back to you. And so if you're by yourself, a good idea is to find those exit lanes.
4-2 advantage, Dynamute. They've got 3 specials. They just unleashed the Tenta missiles right there. And Ashley, this is a chance for Dynamute to make a decisive push in this match.
It looks like they are making a decisive push. There's some really good one-on-ones happening right now. I mean, it is looking really close, though, and anything can happen in these last 45 seconds.
45 seconds, 2-2 on the field, 1 special for each team. Dynamute going to have another squid join the party at this point. It's 3-2 Dynamute at this point. 37 seconds left. You see the map. Dynamute holding down the middle part. Deadbeat going to have to make a push here, Ashley, and stay alive. That's the critical part.
Absolutely. Getting splatted at this point would be a huge deficit for them. They definitely don't. And Wakaroon takes out Tim. It's, oh no, they're down 1 player, but they can still make this happen. They've got 15 seconds left.
4-2 on the field right now for Deadbeat. You've got 13 seconds to make a push, trying to put some pressure on Dynamute. It's 4-2. They've got 3 specials waiting in the clip. 5 seconds left. Expect to see those specials have a bonanza the final 3 seconds. Deadbeat, did they get the push?
Oh, this is close.
Let's leave it up to Judd once again. Unbelievable finish, however. Oh my gosh.
What's Judd got to say?
It's gonna be Dynamute, the 51.9 to 42.9 victory, and once again, a match that comes down to the final drop of ink for Deadbeat. However, they don't end up on the victorious side once again, and you look at Dynamute really dominating this match for the majority of the time. It was just too little ink, too late for Deadbeat.
Yeah, I'm actually, if you looked at the card, Dynamon, no specials unleashed, but also 5 splats and assists. That's great.
Let's take a look at the current standings. Don't forget, after this round robin part of Turf War, we will see the teams 1 through 4. 1 will take on 4 in the first elimination round, 2 versus 3. So that was a heated battle between Deadbeat and Dynamute. We might see them in the next round. 2-0 Dynamute in the lead. Meanwhile, Blue Ring Doctorlings 1-0. Rising Moon, they've dropped a game. Meanwhile, Deadbeat in a little bit of a hole. They're going to have to ink their way out of that as we get set for a couple more rounds of Turf War. And really just Dynamute working really well as a team, and it seemed like they never just felt too much pressure from Deadbeat that entire match, Ashley.
Yeah, they're a well-oiled machine. They've been playing together for a long time. One of the things I thought was really interesting about Deadbeat is they have never met IRL until now. So they have never actually met in person until this tournament, which is really cool, but also it's one of those things where you kind of want to have that synergy of like playing together in the same place and being able to kind of put things together and do the thing. And so maybe that's a little bit of a hurdle.
Well, we've talked about communication, and Eric, what are some of the things that these players are going to communicate to each other throughout the match as far as helping them really be on the same page?
Yeah, so these players are talking about where they are. They're talking about where they see opponents. They're talking, tactics. We need to take and hold this position in order to spread our ink, most effectively. So they're constantly thinking, constantly communicating.
And you really look at what Deadbeat was able to do last game, late in the round. They had those 3 specials, but they just needed a little bit more time. So you wonder if Deadbeat
maybe
might
5 more seconds.
5 more seconds. They might go back to the drawing board and rethink some things for sure. We're going to get set for our 4th matchup right now. We've got the Blue Ring Doctorlings from Australia/New Zealand taking on Rising Moon representing Europe. And we've got yet another new map to highlight. We're going to have Muscle Forge Fitness this time. And when you look at this map here, Ashley, it's really about what we call that rock climbing pyramid in the middle of this map. And when you highlight that, it's really interesting to see how teams can sometimes live up there, but then if you fall down from that pyramid, there are some narrow channels.
Yeah, you can make things happen. If you don't take over the pyramid, that's okay. You can still work all of the different little side areas. You can try to cross the great into enemy territory and kind of cut off those avenues. You're going to see a lot of bombs going up over into the enemy area. There's a lot of great ways to sort of stop your opponents from even getting to that center pyramid.
Yeah, absolutely. Cutting off your opponent's lane of attack is one of the most important things you can do, so because you limit their movement, and movement is everything.
And lastly, this map does have that little bit of an area that we talk about, Eric, where there are some ink-proof walls where you can't really make much of a push beyond that. So these teams will have a little bit of a safety net if things get a little too overwhelming to make a pushback.
Right, and there's usually a couple of ways you can get out of that part of your base. So if, an enemy is kind of camping one spot of that, you can take a different route.
Rising Moon getting set to take on the blue-ringed Octolings. And the blue-ringed Octolings, Ashley, they get the victory over Deadbeat in the opening round. And it was interesting. We had the mixer the other day, and they get a chance to play a little Splatoon 2. And it's not on the teams. You're mixing it up, country versus country. They felt very confident after they had a hands-on approach once again with this specific build.
Yeah, I really liked how when we spoke to them, they said, you know, the cool thing is we feel confident because we all have the exact same amount of experience with the game. No team has played more Splatoon 2 than somebody else, and so I think that's really apparent here. I mean, we had I would consider that to be an upset, our first upset of the day.
As we look at some of the other specials, we saw a couple of the Stingrays here, Eric, and we'll maybe get a chance to see that in this map. But really, these players are getting familiar with what specials play well with not only their individual play style, but the team play style.
Yeah, and there's a limited amount of specials they can use, so they need to plan to use those as effectively as possible.
Let's get this fourth match in our round-robin tournament started here. We've got Rising Moon in the orange. Meanwhile, blue-ringed Octolings in the purple. Rising Moon going with a roller, slosher, Octobrush, and a blaster for our first appearance. Meanwhile, blue-ringed Octolings, 2 splatter shots, a Octobrush, and a charger, as we already see a couple splats. 4-3 advantage on the field right now for the blue-ringed Octolings. Cebu gonna hang out some ink right here, actually, as Rising Moon tries to hold down that rock climbing pyramid in the middle.
Yeah, this is a dangerous location for Cebu to be hanging out in, but gets the splat, able to jump up, swish that brush around, get that ink into everybody's face, which is really great. And now we got the inkjet.
Cebu and the inkjet, meanwhile, getting a splat on Latias right there, and then landing back in the ground. Cebu inking a masterpiece with that brush right now, as we have the early advantage going to Rising Moon on this map, and they're doing a fine job of keeping the blue-ringed Octolings on their heels.
Yeah, you'll see on the north and the south sides of the map, you'll have these areas where you can drop down. They're going to put as much ink as possible. Rising Moon will put down as much orange ink as possible to keep them out of there. They want them to come across that grate so that they can funnel them through and take them out systematically.
SpongeBob falling victim to some Tenta missiles right there. Meanwhile, we have a splashdown being deployed for the blue-ringed Octolings. You see the map advantage right now. Rising Moon, 140 left, 4-4 on the field, a couple of specials ready to go for Rising Moon. Latias trying to just take aim at a couple potential opponents at this point, not having much luck finding anybody right there. However, doing a fine job of holding that back line for the blue-ringed Octolings.
Yeah, really nice job taking out Cebu there. Cebu kind of going nuts with that. Oh, I saw some Toxic Mist.
That Toxic Mist will reduce your ink. We're down to 118, 4-2 advantage on the field for the blue-ringed Octolings. Let's see if they can make a push, and they're starting to get one. 2 specials charged up. Stingray being deployed by this point by Latias, doing a fine job of using some cover. 4-4 still, neither team wanting to give up some ground. However, blue-ringed Octolings, they've got Rising Moon pushed back a little bit as it's now 4-1 on the field.
This is kind of a change of pace here. About a minute ago, we had a completely different map. Now it's covered in purple. We're seeing blue-ringed Octolings really make this last push in the last minute of this match.
There's the first Pachink of the match. I love to hear that as SpongeBob gets a splat right there. Meanwhile, Andy going to try to keep SpongeBob at bay with that suction bomb. No luck there. 4-4 on the map, 30 seconds left, and really it seems like it's going to be the team that holds the top for the final of this match that's going to win this one here.
That pyramid is so key. SpongeBob going down. They are at a deficit. Let's see if Rising Moon can make things happen right now in the last 20 seconds.
2 critical splats. However, Rising Moon coming back, and the moon is rising right now with 17 seconds left. You've got 2 specials charged for Rising Moon. They've got the blue-ringed Octolings on their tentacles pushed back. Meanwhile, Vicky Bird trying to get some desperate ink along that side of the rock climbing pyramid. Is it going to be enough? I don't know. I see a lot of orange on this map.
A lot of orange ink down there.
And it might be another potentially close match. Let's see what Judd has to say on this one. We really saw Rising Moon turn the tide late in this match. And our final result, that victory is going to go to Rising Moon, 46.7 to 43.8%. And really, we talk about how important it is actually to stay alive. And it was Rising Moon riding that critical 4-2 advantage late in the match to make the push of momentum right there.
Yeah, that last 30 seconds is absolutely key. If you are able to convert and get those splats, keep yourself from being splatted, get out of the heat when you're in the kitchen and be like, hey, I gotta wait a second before I do this last push because I'm alone and I don't want to get surrounded or splatted. You wait for your teammate to jump and then you go.
Eric, we've got a couple of replays we'll take a quick look at here. That was a very intense match, real back and forth. That's what you expect when you get teams of this caliber. Here's Cebu hiding down on that lower level, able to pop up out of the ink and use that Octobrush to get the splat, and then once again, You see SpongeBob down below. Seibu going to use that inkjet. And what's the best part about that inkjet in order to get some splats there, Eric?
So that inkjet allows you to get to places you actually wouldn't be able to. So kind of over walls that you can't climb because they're ink-proof. You saw there with Seibu, actually, Seibu went around and splatted because able to flank using that inkjet. The danger with the inkjet is that once the time is up, you actually go back to the spot you initially popped it from. And everyone knows that because there's a little beacon there. So if you don't use that in a safe spot, people are going to camp that because they know you're coming right back.
We see that inkjet. It harkens back to fine memories from Super Mario Sunshine. You see the ink that's propelling you in the air. That ink that is lifting you up in the air, does that have an impact on anything on the ground?
It does. You can actually splat people using that. So if you fly over someone with all the kind of ink exhaust coming out, you can splat them with that. It's also inking your turf. So, people can follow you using the trail you leave behind.
It's a really great way to escape. If you're in a little bit of trouble and there is nothing but enemy ink on the ground, that's a great way to get up and get out.
It's true, but you're also kind of exposed because you're up in the air. If there are chargers around, you're
sitting duck.
Squid in a barrel. Yeah.
Squid in a barrel. I love it right there. Well, we're going to get set for our 5th matchup in this round-robin portion of the Turf War. We've got the Blue Ring Doctorlings taking on Dynamew. This time it's going to be Moray Towers. We all know and love Moray Towers from the original Splatoon. However, it's a little new and improved.
It's the map you love to throw your controller at.
Absolutely. So spot number 1, you've got that sort of lower-level quad right there where a lot of the action can funnel to. However, there are rails, Ashley. And Ashley, as I draw these rails, why don't you tell the folks what players can do to use with these rails to access some more mobility?
I'm very excited about ink rails in Moray Towers specifically. So these players are going to be able to ink a rail. It will turn their team's color, and then they can ride in that rail to places they wouldn't otherwise. Take them much longer to get to.
Right. Yeah. And especially because it's essentially an inked turf. Because if you haven't inked the turf, you're going to have to then ink it and then go. But if you pop the ink rail, you can just get on and ride it immediately.
Other subtle changes we noticed, when you're in that quad area, Eric, there's a little bit of a half pipe that leads to this long vertical wall. We've been known in Splatoon to see a lot of chargers sit on top of that wall. That wall has been shortened this time around, making it easier to get up to any chargers that might be perching there.
Yeah, before, if you held that position, you had great oversight of the entire bottom level there. But with that being able to be more...
It took a while to swim up that wall. It took a while to swim up that wall and take out. So now they'll be able to rush that nest and take out anybody with a charger who's trying to get things set up.
2-0 Dynamew taking on the blue-ringed Octolings. Moray Towers harkens back to the original Splatoon. Let's start with Dynamew in the green, taking on the blue-ringed Octolings in the pink. Dynamew going to go with a Splatter Shot Crow. Meanwhile, a Slosher, a Dynamo Roller, as well as a Charger. Meanwhile, you see the blue-ringed Octolings going with that Octo Brush, Splatter Shot, Charger, and Heavy Splatling.
You notice Autobaru from Dynamew hanging back, painting all of the turnbacks, all the switchbacks. There you go, Vicky Bird with a huge Octo Brush splat. Then gets splatted by Dynamo.
Vicky Bird getting splatted right there. And Dynamo, we should mention this edition of Splatoon, when you're flicking the ink with that roller, it now goes in a different direction.
Yeah, this is, that vertical splash is a little terrifying. And also really easy to reach someone with a charger.
Kakashino getting the slosher splat on SpongeBob right there. Kakashino, though, getting splatted, however, by the splatter scope. Latias, very nice aim right there. Latias trying to take aim on some more Dynamew players. Meanwhile, nobody else has really claimed that middle area. Both teams have done a fine job of diligently inking the ramps on their half of their map, though. You got to account for all those small areas, Ashley.
Yeah, Blue Ring Doctorlings really looks like they're taking advantage of Dynamew, hanging back a little bit, maybe getting ready for a collective charge. Latias just going nuts with that splatter scope, absolutely taking advantage of that charge being able to be used as you pop out of the game.
What's impressive is Dynamew really has the majority half of their map covered in nothing but green ink. Meanwhile, they get a couple of splats, 3-2 advantage on the field. Minute left in this one. A special ready to go. There goes the Stingray. Dual Stingrays. Dueling it out across Moray Towers right there. Meanwhile, Kakashino starting to advance into the blue-ringed Octolings territory. Gonna get the splat. Moving up now to Latias, trying to get the splat on Latias. And this is trouble for the blue-ringed Octolings because Kakashino gonna unleash those tentacles.
That's right, 10 missiles incoming, and also we're down to the last minute. So now is the time to to not get splatted.
Impressive splat here by Sponge Bev with the splatter shot. Meanwhile, Rakaruno trying to move with that charger, trying to find a couple of blue-ringed Octolings to get a splat on. Got Vicky Bird in his sights, however, can't connect. 50 seconds left, 4-4 on the field. I feel like this is going to be another one that comes down to the end here, Ashley.
This is going to be a really close one. Vicky Bird doing a really nice job of escaping the middle of that map. Had a little bit of a moment where maybe was like, whoa, I got to get out of here. I got to leave. Sorry, guys, bye.
Vicky Bird in the ink jet, hitting some ink cover in the middle of the map. She's going to respond back to her spot. Avoids, not too late.
Splatted.
As Dynamute starting to make a push into blue-ringed Octoling territory. Just 23 seconds left, 4-2 advantage on the map for Dynamute. They've got a special ready to go, and here comes that push. 15 seconds left. Can the blue-ringed Octolings get to the middle of the map and make something happen? Oh, it's going to be close.
It's going to be close.
Dynamute, Atubato holding things down from up top. And this is going to be a late little push from the blue-ringed Octolings. However, critical splat by Vicky Bird.
That was a
Vicky
huge
Bird
splat.
with the splat and 2 seconds left. You had enough time to get just a little bit more ink down.
That could be 1% that wins it.
However, it could be Dynamute, 48% to 41. You saw Dynamute putting a little bit of that ink, that green ink, into the blue-ringed Octolings half of the map, and that was the difference in this one, Ashley.
Kakashino snuck back there and was able to get that slosher on the ground, and that thing puts down a lot of ink, and so you can do a lot of damage in a really short amount of time.
It does. It's such an offensive weapon, and you saw actually Kakashino had 10 splats and assists there. Really,
yeah. Performance. That's a huge performance.
Here's this critical splat. Vicky Bird gets the splat. You know, of course, it's going to create some purple ink in the place of who you just splatted. But with 1 second left, could have used about 4 or 5 more to get up
seconds
into
would have been
the territory for Dynamute. And so Dynamute 3-0, and they just roll through this opening round of Turf War here.
Absolutely dominating. I mean, but, you know, they're communicating. Obviously, you're seeing them, you know, have strategies. Say, hey, in Mori Towers, let's hold back on Turf War. Let's make sure every inch of all of our switchbacks are covered in our team ink. And we didn't really see 100% of that on blue-ringed Octolings.
You see Dynamute standing at the top of the standings, 3-0, flawless through our round-robin portion. Meanwhile, this is an interesting matchup here between Deadbeat and Rising Moon. If Deadbeat can get the victory, they're going to tie up with Rising Moon and blue-ringed Octolings. And we do have a tiebreaker in place. We're keeping track of the percentage of turf that was inked. We'll obviously seed the teams based upon who inked the highest percentage of turf in all 3 of those matches. We'll keep you posted on that if Deadbeat can get the victory over Rising Moon. And so, Eric, we've seen Deadbeat struggle a little bit in their first 2 matches to really claim a victory here. What's something they might want to think about? Because we haven't seen Power with that charger yet, relying on that heavy splatling.
Yeah, Power has switched to the splatling, trying to hold that back line and ink as much as possible. But Power, you know, such an effective charger player. We might see him switch to the charger. Who knows?
Well, it's also interesting depending on the map as well, too. These players are just now getting familiarized with these maps, so there are some things that you're going to work on with your communication. However, it's really just, we've seen Deadbeat try to turn the tide late in the match, but just like we saw with blue-ringed Octolings, too little, too late. You think about maybe having a more conscious effort to make that push earlier on.
Yeah, and I think they really have to capitalize on those one-on-ones. I mean, that's such a key part of being able to win at the end of that last 30 seconds. If you've got to win those one-on-ones. You've got to take out your opponent and get them out of the match.
And Eric, as we get set for our final match of round-robin Turf War play, Turf War really helps teach the fundamentals of how you can build upon being successful in Splatoon. As we mentioned before, Ashley, you and I, we hang out in A-B+ land. You're going to be a little bit higher than that, I think, actually. But
just slightly, I promise.
When you really want to make that turn to become a better player, and the conversation we had with these players, it's understanding how you can have territory control and how you don't just unconsciously go into a particular area. You want to make sure that you are inking area, not only to give yourself space to move, but you decrease the amount of mobility for the opposing team.
Right, and Turf War is just one of the modes in the game. It is kind of, as you said, build those fundamentals, but you can use those philosophies you develop playing Turf War in all of the different modes. And also, you know, we do see Deadbeat 0-2 right now, but some teams are better at different modes. So we'll see maybe once we get past the round-robin stage, which is just seeding us for that elimination round, we might see Deadbeat actually just destroy the competition. You never know.
Let's get to our next map, a new one, Inkblot Art Academy.
I love this map.
We got a chance to check it out today for the first time, and as we look at this map, let's point out a couple key points with our numbers here. You've got that middle area, you've got some cover right here, Ashley, but also there's a very interesting piece of art on each side of the map. Let's top that, 2 and 3. These are almost like hands that are sticking up, and you have a chance to ink those. So how can teams use that for leverage in order to get a good line of sight on everybody?
They are inkable, and I will say if I had a charger, that would be the place that would be my nest.
It's a little obvious, you know, people might think you're up there and actually shoot up there,
Sure,
but at the same time, it's a great vantage point.
Absolutely. You could get a burst bomb up there. That would not be a good thing.
That would be
very bad.
Well, there are some similarities in this map to the Reef, as there's a middle area. It's not a very long linear level that we might have seen in some levels in the original Splatoon here, Eric. So the teams are really going to be right on top of each other from the majority of the map. It's not going to take very long to get back to the middle also.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll see who is able to hold that, and if you're able to stay alive, super jump right to the front lines, you can push beyond that.
Yeah.
Let's get set for our final match in round-robin play of Turf War. Deadbeat looking for that first victory as they take on Rising Moon. Deadbeat going to be in the yellow, Rising Moon going to be in the blue, and let's take a look at the loadouts for both teams here. Rising Moon going with that Slosher, Octobrush, Roller, and Splatter Shot. Meanwhile, a pair of Splatter Shots, Heavy Splatling once again for Deadbeat, and a Slosher as Rising Moon the first to the middle here, Ashley.
Yeah, I mean, they went right for it. They were not wasting any time at getting ink down on the ground, which might be detrimental to them. We'll have to see if that pays off.
And right now, we see Deadbeat. Everyone's just sort of holding the same linear position, getting some ink covered, making sure nobody advances too far out without some support behind them. As we get a vantage point of Tim, and it's a 4-3 advantage right now for Deadbeat. A couple specials ready to go, 3-2 on the field. Early advantage with 2:25 left in this one, Ash.
Yeah, you can see Deadbeat really making a push here because they have that player advantage. Hexen really just doing a lot of damage and taking out a lot of our Rising Moon players.
Tim being very aware for Deadbeat, finding one of those lower areas that you can go and ink every single percentage. Very vital in Turf War. 4-3 advantage and a trio of specials ready to go for Deadbeat at any moment's notice.
Yeah, I see some really interesting things happening down here with Seibu is taking a little bit of a sneak attack here, trying to take out Wit. Let's see if it works out. It does. He takes out Wit. That's great. And now we're seeing Power with that Splatling get taken out.
The
Heavy Splatling.
Jets with a huge blorb of ink to take out Power. Power drops down from that perch. However, Tim's going to avenge his teammate right here.
That's right.
As Tim
Avenge the
back
splat.
to the lower level, get some more ink down there. And we saw Power at the middle of that tower, in the middle of the level, a really important spot and vantage point for him.
It is, but it's also really dangerous for him because that Heavy Splatling has a huge wind-up time. It takes a long time to get that thing to charge, but once it's ready, he is going to be very dangerous.
Tim sees Seibu trying to undo his work that he worked so hard for. Going to try and get him. Here comes the splashdown, but no. Seibu getting the splat with the Octobrush while Tim was midair with the splashdown. Too late there. 1 minute left. 4-4 on the field. Right now, the advantage looks like it's going to Rising Moon as they're starting to make a bit of a push into Deadbeat territory. It's 2-2. Seibu in that inkjet. He's gonna have to splat down though.
He just took off, and that's the importance of having your exit lanes ready to go. Seibu's trying so hard to take out Hexen, and this is a great one-on-one, and I'm really curious to see this could be a key moment.
43 seconds left, 4-4 on the field right now. Seibu trying to escape some danger right now. Wit gonna try and flank him with the Slosher. Tim unable, gets the splat on Seibu. It's now 4-2 for Deadbeat. Here's where they've got to make that push we've talked about, Ashley.
This is a huge advantage for Deadbeat. They're going to push forward. They've got 2 specials ready to go. Tim is already pushing into enemy territory.
Keep an eye on Andy at the bottom part of the map right here, trying to cover some important territory, trying to get the Slosh. He's going to go one-on-one with Wit. Wit using some coverage. Andy with a critical splat against Wit, and that's going to allow Andy to move out and cover some precious yellow territory. It's now 2-1, 3-1 on the field for Deadbeat. They've got 5 seconds left for a push. This might be enough. Tim
a lot of yellow ink
down into action, and let's see what the result here is. Did Deadbeat get enough done late in this match? It looks like we might have. What does Judd have to say? And yes, that's going to be a 50.5 victory over 32.8 4 deadbeat. That means our producers in the back are going to have to do some number crunching to figure out what's going to happen with this tie. But what we saw from Rising Moon, they did a great job of making sure whenever deadbeat covered one of those lower areas, they rushed right in there to make sure that they covered it up, and it forced deadbeat to really get away from what they were trying to do to go take care of the damage that Rising Moon was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we also saw them really make an effort to keep the north and south parts of the map in the center covered in yellow. So that way, if they were in trouble, if they have a teammate jumping in, they're able to have those exit lanes. They can come back and have that advantage of, oh, well, you haven't inked here. Sorry, Rising Moon.
And Eric, how important is map recognition when you get to Turf War? Because a lot of times, so much of the action is sometimes concentrated in the middle of the maps. We saw those lower areas that you can't ignore, especially late in the match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certain players tend to gravitate to certain parts of the map. I mean, you have your little hiding spots that you love to go to. If you have a new map like Inkblot, you haven't established those yet. So you really need to figure those out before you can use the map to its most effective.
So we talked about our producers doing some number crunching in the back, and as we said, it was the highest average percentage of ink covered throughout the 3 matches. In first place, obviously, we've got Dynamute. They're 3-0. Australia, USA, and Europe, all tied. How about these numbers here? Australia, New Zealand, 43.4%. Deadbeat, 43.4%.
No.
Wow.
Rising Moon, 34.56. So as we
That
see
is
the teams getting set
bonkers.
for the first set of elimination matches, it'll be Dynamute taking on Rising Moon. Meanwhile, the Blue-Ringed Octolings of Australia, New Zealand taking on Deadbeat as we advance to these best-of-5 modes. So we knew the competition was good here, Ashley.
This is fierce competition. It is literally dead even. This is amazing, and honestly, really impressive by all of the teams to come out and have this really even match. There's nobody who's just getting swept.
And we see that these teams, as we mentioned, trying to adjust to different types of strategies here, Eric. We mentioned you've got no more stealth jump along to go with that quick respawn. There's no more ninja ink as well, too. So these teams are really going to get a feel for each other. Are you excited to see how the strategy might evolve throughout these matches?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all these teams really are reading their opponents. They're seeing, what's most effective against this team, and they're evolving their strategies based on that.
An unbelievable set of round-robin matches in Turf War. We've got our teams seated. We're going to take a short little break, then get set for our first elimination matches, best of 5, as we continue with the Splatoon 2 World Inkling Invitational.
Thank you.